Chapter 2033, Burial Night. Chapter 2033, Burial Night. The battlefield changed rapidly. Nobody expected 2 of the 5 perfected immortal experts to die in succession in the blink of an eye. This change not only shocked Prince Yuan's side, even Su Zimo was stunned on the spot. Initially, he thought that he would definitely die. However, he had not expected the situation to change. Reveal your true form. Perfected immortal Jingyu turned the ancient mirror in his hands and a blood beam burst forth from the mirror, shining behind the grey-robed perfected immortal. Even the latter was enveloped. The moment the grey-robed perfected immortal died, the blood-colored mirror light descended. The body of the grey-robed perfected immortal rotted rapidly, turning into a pool of blood. The figure behind him was enveloped by the bloodlight of the ancient mirror and revealed himself. It was a skinny old man with withered hair. His face was filled with wrinkles and there was nothing special about him. However, it was precisely this skinny old man who had just killed 2 perfected immortal expert. The strange thing was that Su Zimo had completely forgotten what the old man looked like the moment he closed his eyes. Even if he were to open his eyes and look again, he would forget what the old man looked like the moment he turned around. The image of the skinny old man had always been blurry and difficult to establish in his mind. What sort of a technique is this? Su Zimo was shocked. Master. Right then, Feng Zi exclaimed in joy when she saw who it was. Feng Zi's master. Su Zimo had heard Feng Zi mention a few times that her master was also one of the founders of Remnant Knight. In Remnant Knight, the Remnant character came from Feng Kantian 1 while the Knight character came from her master. It was clear of the skinny old man's status in Remnant Knight. It was no wonder why this old man could kill 2 perfected immortals in a flash. Feng Zi's assassination skills were imparted to her by this old man. How strong were his assassination methods? It was not an exaggeration to say that it was unfathomable. Perfected immortal Burial Night. Perfected immortal Jingyu glared at the skinny old man and sneered, "You're not dead yet." Remnant Knight's leader? The naked burly man frowned slightly. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, the Thunder Emperor reared his head in laughter and was invigorated. Old friend, you're here. The skinny old man glanced sideways at the Thunder Emperor and suppressed the excitement in his heart. His eyes were still emotionless and he merely nodded. Su Zimo was beside the Thunder Emperor. He could clearly sense the excitement in the Thunder Emperor's heart after seeing that person, and his bloodline seemed like it was about to burn. Burial Night, let me introduce you to a young man. The Thunder Emperor pointed at Su Zimo in front of him and said, his name is Su Zimo. In the 10 Absolute Hell, he was the one who took the risk and cleared the 10 Absolute formation single-handedly to help me escape. Earlier on, he came to give me half of the 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng with the intention of dying. It's truly a joy in my life to be able to make such a righteous bro. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. In other words, the Thunder Emperor was implying that he was on par with him. What was the Thunder Emperor's cultivation realm, status and reputation? Notwithstanding the fact that Su Zimo was only a Grade 1 Earth Immortal, how many perfected immortal experts could be worthy of the Thunder Emperor's attention? But now, the Thunder Emperor did not look down on Su Zimo at all and viewed him as someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Perfected immortal Burial Night looked at Su Zimo and nodded slightly as well. What a man! Feng Zi was slightly stunned when she saw that. She knew her master's personality the best. His master had never praised anyone like this before, let alone a Grade 1 Earth Immortal he was meeting for the first time. Even with her talent and endowment, she had barely received any praise from her master all these years. The Thunder Emperor patted Su Zimo on the shoulder and smiled. Although you've never seen this skinny old man before, you should have heard of him. He was the one who founded Tianhuang Mainland's hidden death sect. I wonder if it's still around. Ah! Su Zimo exclaimed. This perfected immortal Burial Night was also from Tianhuang Mainland and was the progenitor of hidden death sect. Prince Yuan's expression was dark as he said coldly, Old Dog Knight Burial, you came at the right time. If I kill you, the Remnant Knight you're backing will vanish into thin air as well. Leave Burial Night to me. You guys deal with Feng Kantian. Perfected immortal Fei Yun said coldly. Perfected immortal Jingyu said in a deep voice, Burial Knight is also a void reversion perfected immortal. Be careful. Perfected immortal Fei Yun smirked and mocked. He's just an old dog on the brink of death. Even if he cultivates to the void reversion realm, he's nothing to be afraid of. Even Su Zimo could tell that perfected immortal Burial Knight was indeed in his twilight years and did not have much lifespan left. Those in their twilight years had weak blood chi and essence spirits, causing their combat strength to be greatly reduced. Furthermore, perfected immortal Burial Knight specialized in assassination, not head-on combat. Now that his tracks were exposed, it was indeed not optimistic if he were to clash with perfected immortal Fei Yun, who was at his peak. At that moment, the Thunder Emperor was still refining the 7 glow immortal ginseng. The Thunder Emperor was severely injured. According to perfected immortal Jing Yu, even with the 7 glow immortal ginseng, it would take an entire half a day for the Thunder Emperor to recover. However, perfected immortal Fei Yun and the others would not give him that chance. Perfected immortal Burial Knight arrived before the Thunder Emperor and Su Zimo in a flash. His intentions were clear. He wanted to do his best to buy time for the Thunder Emperor. Why? Perfected immortal Fei Yun sneered. An old dog like you wants to fight against the three of us? Perfected immortal Burial Knight remained silent and his hands quivered slightly. 2 daggers appeared in his palms. Kill. Perfected immortal Jing Yu hollered softly. 3 perfected immortals attacked at the same time. Perfected immortal Jing Yu's ancient mirror flew into the air and hovered with its surface facing down. Poof! Perfected immortal Jing Yu bit his tongue gently and spat out a stream of essence blood onto the ancient mirror. The mirror shimmered and formed a blood-colored full moon that slashed towards perfected immortal Burial Knight. Phew! The naked burly man channeled his blood chi and his bloodline phenomenon condensed behind him. Wielding his bronze truncheons, he arrived before perfected immortal Burial Knight and swung the truncheons, causing the wind to howl. Swoosh! 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 Perfected immortal Fei Yun did not hold back this time round either. His wide robes fluttered and a large number of cold beams flew out densely. Every single cold beam was a flying saber. Perfected immortal Fei Yun had 10,800 flying sabers. Every single one of them was his destiny dharmic treasure, and it was extremely draining to refine them. Every flying saber was a sentient dharmic treasure. Their grades were not high and they were only grade 6 spirit treasures. However, the combination of 10,800 flying sabers could create various array formations and their power would increase exponentially. It was extremely terrifying. The flying sabers sped through the air and connected together in a mysterious manner, forming a saber formation. Saber chi rampaged within and the ear-piercing sound of metal clashing could be heard, as though it could kill everything. Chapter 2034 End of the Road. Chapter 2034 End of the Road. The 3 perfected immortal experts attacked at the same time and released a flurry of attacks that seemed to set off raging tides that were suffocating. Perfected immortal Burial Knight's skinny figure was like a small boat in the surging waves that could be devoured at any moment. The current situation was different from before. The reason why perfected immortal Burial Knight could kill 2 perfected immortals in his twilight years with his battered body was mainly because he caught them off guard and made use of assassination methods. But now, he was facing the 3 perfected immortals head-on. More importantly, he could not retreat or dodge. That was because the Thunder Emperor and Su Zimo were behind him. Perfected immortal Burial Knight pursed his lips expressionlessly and remained silent, channeling the blood chi in his body. Splash! The sound of a tsunami sounded gradually and weakly. However, it did not last long before it declined. Perfected immortal Burial Knight was old. In the past, he even cultivated a bloodline phenomenon. But now, his blood chi could not even sustain the sound of a tsunami and gradually vanished. Darkness Devour. Steel Calvary. Perfected immortal Burial Knight channeled his essence spirit and released 2 supreme divine powers in succession. Darkness descended and fought against the blood-colored full moon that was slashing down from midair. Although the darkness was vast, the blood-colored full moon advanced slowly in the darkness and gradually approached perfected immortal Burial Knight. Actually, although they were both perfected one-realm experts, perfected immortal Burial Knight was superior to perfected immortal Jingyu in terms of cultivation. However, in his twilight years, his combat strength was greatly reduced and he could not even defend against perfected Immortal Jing Yu's immortal art. The bronze truncheon of the naked burly man smashed down. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight wielded his daggers and slashed upwards, blocking the bronze truncheon. Clang! Sparks flew. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight shuddered and his initially skinny body seemed to have grown shorter. At the same time, a large group of heavenly troops appeared behind Perfected Immortal Burial Knight. Wielding metal spears, they rode on horses and galloped over for thousands of kilometers, colliding against Perfected Immortal Fei Yun's saber formation. Boom! There was a loud bang. When the heavenly troops entered the saber formation, they were minced into pieces. Broken limbs flew everywhere and the supreme divine power swayed. Clang! At the same time, the burly man's second truncheon smashed down and was blocked by Perfected Immortal Burial Knight once more. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight's feet were already deeply embedded in the mud. His skinny body trembled slightly but his hands that were holding the daggers were still unusually stable. Those were the hands of an assassin as well as a killer. No matter the pressure, his hands would not tremble. Let's see how much longer you can last. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun hollered softly with a ferocious glint in his eyes. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and spat out a stream of true essence, scattering it on the saber formation at the front. Clang! Clang! The aura of the saber formation surged and its sharpness intensified, dispelling the supreme divine power, Steel Cavalry. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight shuddered. The blood-colored full moon charged in as well, tearing through the darkness and slashing down. Die! The naked burly man grinned with a menacing expression and raised his bronze truncheon once more, drawing a perfect arc in midair. Coupled with his bloodline phenomenon, he smashed it towards the top of Perfected Immortal Burial Knight's head. Bury! Suddenly, Perfected Immortal Burial Knight freed his hand and his dagger drew a few mysterious arcs in midair, emitting a tragic, deadly and destructive aura. Unfortunately, before the arcs could be completed, Perfected Immortal Burial Knight could not continue and spat out a mouthful of blood. Even so, the imprints of the mysterious arcs condensed in midair and did not dissipate. They devoured the descending blood-colored full moon and vanished. A secret skill from the fiend domain? Perfected Immortal Jing Yu frowned slightly. At the same time, the bronze truncheon of the burly man descended. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight raised his dagger once more to defend. However, he was clearly extremely weak after releasing divine powers and secret skills consecutively to fight against the three perfected immortals. Clang! The dagger collided slightly with the bronze truncheon and was sent flying. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight's arm could not withstand the power surging from the bronze truncheon and the sound of bones cracking could be heard as it slumped weakly. His arm was crippled. Given the capabilities of a perfected immortal, he could circulate his blood chi and recover his arm before long. However, Perfected Immortal Burial Knight could no longer even activate that power. Right now, he was indeed at the end of the road. With the intention of dying, Su Zimo gave the 7 glow immortal ginseng to the Thunder Emperor. Wasn't it the same for his trip here? Perfected Immortal Fei Yun's saber formation descended and Perfected Immortal Burial Knight suddenly stabbed his own heart with his other hand. Poof! Hot blood spewed out from his chest and splattered on Perfected Immortal Fei Yun's saber formation. The saber formation was tainted by the blood of Perfected Immortal Burial Knight's heart and its aura was greatly reduced. Green smoke billowed and trembled slightly. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun frowned slightly and sneered, puny tricks. Although the heart blood could affect his flying sabers, they were sentient and could be cleansed on their own. Before long, they would be cleansed of the bloodstains. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight was already risking everything without holding back. His heart was shattered and he could no longer hold on. With a pale expression, he fell backwards. Prince Yuanzhou and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that. Although Perfected Immortal Burial Knight was not dead, he was as good as half dead. As for the Thunder Emperor, he had not devoured the 7 glow immortal ginseng for long and was of no threat. Right then, a bronze square tripod suddenly descended from midair and smashed onto the saber formation. It was the Hell Suppression Tripod. Su Zimo was only a grade 1 Earth immortal after all. Even if he summoned the hell suppression tripod, his strength was extremely weak. When he collided with the saber formation, it did not budge at all. Ha 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 ha. When perfected Immortal Fei Yun saw that, he could not help but burst into laughter. He pointed at Su Zimo and mocked, "How dare a puny ant challenge the might of the heavens?" Before he could finish laughing, his expression changed. Although Su Zimo was not a threat when he summoned the power of the hell suppression tripod, it was sentient to begin with. When it sensed the grade of the flying sabers, its opening turned and it began devouring the grade 6 spirit treasures. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun was slightly distracted and dozens of flying sabers were devoured into the tripod. What's that? Perfected Immortal Fei Yun was alarmed and hurriedly controlled his spirit consciousness to pull the dozens of flying sabers out of the hell suppression tripod. Su Zimo's expression darkened. Although the hell suppression tripod could devour spirit treasures, it was still difficult for it to subdue spirit treasures with an owner present. Su Zimo, since I was the one who brought you out of the essence spirit mine back then, I'll send you on your way today to sever this karma. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu looked down at Su Zimo from above. His spirit consciousness moved and the ancient mirror in midair descended, slashing towards Su Zimo. That was the power of a perfected immortal expert and Su Zimo could not defend against it at all. Before he could react, the ancient mirror had already closed in. Clang. Suddenly, an ear-piercing sound exploded in his ears. Su Zimo was shocked and looked over instinctively. A gigantic spear tip extended from behind him and struck the ancient mirror. Senior Thunder Emperor. Delighted, Su Zimo turned around. The Thunder Emperor stood up slowly and wielded the startling evil spear. His gaze was like lightning as he looked at perfected Immortal Jing Yu and the other two with a torrential battle intent. How is that possible? You. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu panicked in disbelief. You're right. It'll take at least half a day for my injuries to fully recover. However, the Thunder Emperor changed the topic and said slowly, why do I need to wait for my injuries to fully recover in order to kill the three of you? Chapter 2035, Domineering Visual Technique. Chapter 2035, Domineering Visual Technique. At that moment, the wound on the Thunder Emperor's chest left behind by the execution saber was still extremely striking and had yet to heal. However, the rotting flesh around them fell off and new blood membranes appeared. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu suddenly snapped out of his stupor when he saw that. A year ago, the Thunder Emperor was severely injured when he wreaked havoc in Absolute Thunder City. Even so, he killed 10 perfected immortals and crushed Absolute Thunder City before floating away. But now that the Thunder Emperor had obtained half of the 7 glow immortal ginseng, although he could not heal the injuries left behind by the execution saber for the time being, the injuries left by the heir of King Jin and the others earlier on had already healed. The Thunder Emperor might be right, he did not have to wait for his injuries to heal completely in order to kill the three of them. Prince Yuan's expression was terrible. This was initially a foolproof encirclement. However, due to various factors, an unpredictable change happened and changed the situation completely. Actually, Prince Yuan's plan was perfect. He had planned everything. In fact, even the arrival of perfected Immortal Burial Knight could not stop his plan. Instead, he could take the opportunity to kill perfected Immortal Burial Knight as well. With that, without a leader, Remnant Knight would be in a state of disunity and would be equivalent to being destroyed. However, no one expected that the current situation would reverse because of an insignificant Grade 1 Earth Immortal. In a battle of this level, even Prince Yuan Zhuo and a commander of the Heaven Execution Guards could not interfere. Who would have thought that the intervention of an Earth Immortal would cause a series of changes? It was like the butterfly effect where a shocking storm was caused by the flapping of a butterfly's wings. Su Zimo. Prince Yuan Zhuo glared at Su Zimo fiercely with endless anger and hatred in his eyes. The jade talisman he wanted was occupied by this person. The clone that he had spent so much effort and time to cultivate was destroyed by this person as well. The trap that he had painstakingly set up was showing signs of spiraling out of control as well. At the end of the day, it was all because of this person. Your Highness, the situation is bad. The Heaven Execution Guard commander, Lone Star, sent a voice transmission secretly, I'll protect you and leave this place first. No. Prince Yuan Zhuo had an indignant expression as he grit his teeth. I devised strategies and finally set up this trap. I refuse to believe that it'll be destroyed by the hands of a Grade 1 Earth Immortal. Even if I can't kill the Thunder Emperor today, I'm going to tear Su Zimo into pieces. Although Prince Yuan Zhuo said that, Su Zimo was standing beside the Thunder Emperor and he did not dare to act rashly. The Thunder Emperor helped perfected Immortal Burial Knight up and asked, "Are you alright?" "I won't die just yet." Perfected Immortal Burial Knight said expressionlessly. "That's good." The Thunder Emperor smiled when he heard that. "It's a rare reunion and I want to get drunk with you. I brought the wine. It's waiting for you." Perfected Immortal Burial Knight replied. "Ha ha ha ha." The Thunder Emperor burst into laughter and the startling evil spear in his hands trembled as he walked towards Perfected Immortal Jing Yu and the other two. "Pretentious." Perfected Immortal Fei Yun sneered and controlled the 10,800 flying sabers with both hands, saying coldly, "I don't believe that you can fight 1 against 3 before you recover. Kill." Perfected Immortal Fei Yun hollered softly. The 10,800 flying sabers gathered once more and intertwined continuously, forming a gigantic saber. Every single inch of the saber had a blade that was extremely sharp. Swoosh. The saber slashed down. At the same time, Perfected Immortal Jing Yu took out another dharmic treasure from his storage bag. It was a golden gourd that was tossed into the air. The bottle stopper fell and a golden light shone from the mouth of the gourd, enveloping the Thunder Emperor. Wielding his bronze truncheons, the barefooted burly man advanced once more, prepared to fight the Thunder Emperor in melee combat. Lightning blazed in the Thunder Emperor's eyes and suddenly burst forth, arriving instantly. The naked burly man's expression changed starkly. Although it was only a single gaze, the naked burly man could sense the wrath of thunder and smell the aura of death from the Thunder Emperor's gaze. The naked burly man stopped in his tracks hurriedly and crossed his truncheons to defend. Boom! The lightning gaze struck the intersection of the two truncheons and let out a loud bang. The naked burly man shuddered and was sent flying, landing heavily on the ground. A destructive power of thunder surged over like a tsunami. The bloodline phenomenon behind him could not withstand the sea of lightning and dissipated instantly. His body was filled with electric arcs as well and he endured immense pain. He convulsed slightly and blood scars appeared on the surface of his skin. That lightning gaze almost exploded his body. If not for his bloodline phenomenon that blocked most of the power of thunder, he would most likely have died by now. A single gaze was enough to scare the naked burly man out of his wits. He was in no mood to fight and was prepared to get up and escape. After all, he was only a guest of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom and did not have to risk his life to fight the Thunder Emperor. Die. Right then, the Thunder Emperor's voice sounded in his ears. The lightning in the Thunder Emperor's eyes condensed to their limits once more and burst forth in an incomparably blinding manner. A second gaze descended. The power of thunder on the naked burly man had yet to dissipate completely and his movements were a little sluggish to begin with. Furthermore, that gaze descended almost instantly. Even if he wanted to dodge, he could not. "Ah!" the naked burly man shouted. Boom! The lightning gaze struck him and the loud bang drowned his roar. Right in front of everyone, the naked burly man's body was shattered by that gaze. Before his essence spirit could escape, it was drowned in the lightning. 2 gazes killed a perfected immortal. The surrounding cultivators were shocked. None of them had ever seen such a domineering visual technique. None of the cultivators present were from the same era as the Thunder Emperor. Everyone's understanding of the Thunder Emperor only existed in some fragmented rumors and was extremely vague. It was only now that many cultivators truly understood the weight of the word supreme perfected immortal after witnessing the Thunder Emperor's method. Right now, the Thunder Emperor was still injured. If he was in his peak condition, how terrifying would he be? Nobody could imagine. After the death of the naked burly man, the cultivators gathered by Prince Yuan Zhuo were already in chaos and wanted to leave this place. If the Thunder Emperor turned to look at them, which of them could survive? After the 2 gazes killed the burly man, the golden light released by perfected immortal Jing Yu's golden gourd descended and shone on the Thunder Emperor. At the same time, the saber formed by perfected Immortal Fei Yun's 10,800 flying sabers slashed down. Lightning surged around the Thunder Emperor and a sea of lightning seemed to condense around him, confronting the golden light above his head. He raised the startling evil spear and stabbed without any fancy moves. Clang! Sparks flew as the spear and saber collided. The entire soaring dragon mountain range seemed to tremble. Chapter 2036, Not to be Challenged. Chapter 2036, Not to be Challenged. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun released his full strength this time round. The sound of a tsunami echoed from his body as he channeled his blood chi to its limits. Every single flying saber contained his true essence. Even so, his saber could not break through the obstruction of the startling evil spear. Your Highness, run. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu took advantage of the moment when he joined forces with Perfected Immortal Fei Yun to hold back the Thunder Emperor temporarily and suddenly shouted. He had already sensed that the situation was bad and wanted Yuan Zuo to leave first. On the surface, the two of them held back the Thunder Emperor and it was difficult to determine the victor. However, as time passed by, the medicinal effects of the 7-glow immortal ginseng were gradually refined in the Thunder Emperor's body. His injuries healed continuously and his combat strength would increase as well. At that time, both of them would definitely lose. I'm not leaving. In the end, Prince Yuan Zuo was indignant and turned around. He looked at Feng Zi at the side and suddenly reached out to grab her. Feng Kantian, your granddaughter is in my hands. Hurry and surrender. Prince Yuan Zuo laughed sinisterly. Feng Zi was suppressed by the spirit consciousness of the Heaven Execution Guard, Lone Star, the entire time and could not escape. At that moment, she did not even have the strength to resist when Prince Yuan Zuo attacked her. The Thunder Emperor was enraged when he saw that. However, he was held back by Perfected Immortal Jing Yu and Perfected Immortal Fei Yun. Indeed, he could not split himself and could not save Feng Zi. Although Perfected Immortal Burial Knight was not dead, his heart was shattered and he was severely injured. His combat strength was almost completely gone and he was helpless as well. If Feng Zi were to fall into the hands of Prince Yuan Zuo, the Thunder Emperor would definitely be wary and the outcome of today's battle would be unpredictable. Boom! Right then, a tremendous might descended and an incomparably gigantic beast appeared in front of Feng Zi. The gigantic beast had two heads, a turtle and snake coiling around one another. Carrying a shell on its back, its 4 legs were like heavenly piercing pillars and it roared into the skies with a dignified gaze. Prince Yuan Zuo's palm did not manage to grab Feng Zi. Instead, it landed on the shell on the turtle and snake's back. Pest! When his fingertip collided with the tough and rough turtle shell, he felt a sharp pain and Prince Yuan Zuo could not help but gasp. Buzz! There were complicated marks on the turtle shell, as though it contained the secrets and true meaning of the universe, emitting rays of light. Prince Yuan Zuo could not dodge in time and his palm was pierced by the light, dripping with blood. Ah! Prince Yuan Zuo cried out in pain and retreated. The Heaven Execution Guard commander, Lone Star, hurried forward and looked at the gigantic beast beneath him with a grim expression. Prince Yuan Zuo flung his palm. He was a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Although his palm was pierced, it was only a superficial wound. His blood chi surged and he recovered in the blink of an eye. Where did this beast come from? Prince Yuan Zuo cursed. That looks like the sacred beast, the black tortoise. Lone Star said slowly. What? Prince Yuan Zuo was shocked. Sacred beasts were living beings that only existed in legends. Even his father, King Jin, might not have seen them before, let alone him. The black tortoise came from the 3rd tripod wall of the Hell Suppression tripod. When Su Zimo saw that Feng Zi was in danger, he summoned the black tortoise sacred soul without hesitation. Under Su Zimo's control, the black tortoise sacred soul was initially only blocking in front of Feng Zi. However, when it heard the words beast, its eyes suddenly revealed a killing intent and the light on its turtle shell became even more blinding. The black tortoise was enraged. What was the bloodline and existence of a sacred beast? Even the dragon and phoenix races, the leaders of all living beings in the upper world, had to bow down to them. But now, someone called it a beast. Even if it was only a sacred soul and was not a true sacred beast, its dignity was not to be challenged. Roar. The black tortoise sacred soul moved its limbs and a large mist surrounded it, forming a deep blue sea. It crossed the sea and charged towards Prince Yuanzhua. Protect His Highness. Lone Star shouted hurriedly and attacked first. The other cultivators in the surroundings, be it Earth Immortals or Heaven Immortals, attacked the black tortoise sacred soul as well. In the chaos, no one cared about Feng Zi anymore. Su Zimo made use of the True Dragon 9 flashes and flashed twice in succession, bringing Feng Zi away from the spot and running behind the Thunder Emperor. When he saw that, the Thunder Emperor was relieved. Flying Cloud Strike. Suddenly, perfected Immortal Fei Yun hollered and channeled his spirit consciousness. His glabella shone and an essence spirit secret skill burst forth, attacking the Thunder Emperor. On the other side, perfected Immortal Jing Yu released his essence spirit secret skill as well. When the two essence spirit secret skills descended, the Thunder Emperor did not dodge or avoid. In fact, he did not even activate his essence spirit secret skill to retaliate. Instead, he allowed the two essence spirit secret skills to surge into his consciousness. We did it. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun was ecstatic when he saw that. As long as the Thunder Emperor's essence spirit was injured, his strength would decrease significantly and he would definitely die. However, perfected Immortal Jing Yu had a grim expression and did not smile at all. He had witnessed the Thunder Emperor's methods in Absolute Thunder City. The Thunder Emperor was not stupid or crazy. Since he dared to endure their essence spirit secret skills with his consciousness, he definitely had a way of dispelling them. In reality, perfected Immortal Jing Yu was not wrong. In the Thunder Emperor's consciousness, because his Dao fruit was shattered, he took advantage of the situation for the past hundreds of thousands of years and condensed a sea of lightning. He would replace the position of the Dao fruit with the sea of lightning and rebuild after it was destroyed. His injuries had yet to recover. However, if he could recover completely, he would be much stronger than his combat strength hundreds of thousands of years ago with the power of the Sea of Lightning. The Sea of Lightning in his consciousness had many uses. One of them was to devour essence spirit secret skills and absorb and refine the power of the other party's essence spirit to strengthen the Sea of Lightning. Therefore, when the two essence spirit secret skills of perfected Immortal Jing Yu and Su Zimo entered the Thunder Emperor's glabella, they were devoured by the Sea of Lightning. Not only was the Thunder Emperor not injured, his spirit consciousness expanded instead. Spirit Vanquishing Whip. The Thunder Emperor touched his glabella gently with one hand and withdrew a whip that was surrounded by lightning in his consciousness, whipping perfected Immortal Jing Yu and perfected Immortal Fei Yun. The two of them were shocked and dodged hurriedly. The Thunder Emperor's blood chi intensified and he broke free from the restraints of the golden gourd in midair instantly. As for perfected Immortal Fei Yun, he was slightly distracted when the Thunder Emperor seized the opportunity to release his blood chi and endless lightning burst forth from the startling evil spear. Boom! There was a loud bang. The 10,800 sabers were dispersed by the startling evil spear instantly. Crack! 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 Dao cracks appeared on the blades of every flying saber. Without a saber formation, a grade 6 spirit treasure could not defend against the 9 tribulations pure yang startling evil spear. With a single spear strike, 10,800 sabers shattered into countless shards that scattered on the ground. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun shuddered and his face turned pale as his gaze dimmed. The destiny dharmic treasures that he had painstakingly refined were all crippled by the Thunder Emperor. His mind was implicated and he suffered a huge blow as well. Chapter 2037, Slaying a Perfected Immortal. Chapter 2037, Slaying a Perfected Immortal. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun glared at the Thunder Emperor fiercely with bloodshot eyes. He was a legacy disciple of one of the 4 immortal sects, Imperial Wind Temple. Furthermore, he was a paragon among the legacy disciples and was extremely famous in the divine firmament immortal domain. There was no way he could endure such a failure. He did not believe that with his talent and combat strength, he would lose to someone who had a shattered Dao fruit and was severely injured. Blade Storm. Perfected Immortal Fei Yun channeled his essence spirit recklessly and released a killing secret skill of Imperial Wind Temple. Using true essence as the foundation, the secret skill condensed into endless sharp blades that spun and gathered continuously. Finally, they formed an apocalyptic storm that could sweep through all living beings and tear everything apart. The richer the true essence and the more sharp blades condensed, the stronger the secret skill. Now, under the control of perfected immortal Fei Yun, the many flying saber shards that fell to the ground turned into cold beams of light and surged into the storm. The blade storm became even more terrifying and devoured towards the Thunder Emperor. The Thunder Emperor swung the spirit vanquishing whip in his hands towards the blade storm. Piak! The spirit vanquishing whip collided with it and shattered on the spot. Not far away, perfected immortal Fei Yun swayed slightly and his eyes dimmed. Suddenly, his aura turned extremely weak. The power of the spirit vanquishing whip could descend directly into the essence spirit. However, he managed to endure it eventually. Because his essence spirit was damaged, the blade storm paused for a moment as well. Right then, the Thunder Emperor did not dodge or avoid. Instead, he advanced and charged into the blade storm with a single step, arriving at the center. Dense wounds appeared on the Thunder Emperor's body from the storm. However, the deepest of those injuries merely tore through his flesh and could not injure his bones. The Thunder Emperor created the Void Thunder Manual and his thunder bones were incomparably tough and unshakable. Under the powerful blood chi of the Thunder Emperor and the medicinal effects of the 7-glow immortal ginseng, those external injuries stopped bleeding in the blink of an eye and began to heal. The Thunder Emperor's blood chi rose continuously and he stood in the middle of the blade storm. Lightning surrounded his body and he was mighty and unmoved. Perfected immortal Fei Yun was shocked when he saw that. The blade storm of Imperial Wind Temple was extremely powerful and few secret skills could take it head-on. However, the blade storm was not without weaknesses. The center of the storm was the weakness of the secret skill. However, even if someone knew about that weakness, it was useless. Those people were minced before they could enter the center of the storm. But now, perfected immortal Fei Yun witnessed a person barge into the center of the storm with his body and stand right in the eye of the storm. Who do you think you are? How dare you challenge me? The Thunder Emperor's gaze was like lightning as he hollered and smashed the startling evil spear in his hands heavily against the ground. Boom! The entire soaring dragon mountain range shook. A blinding thunderbolt burst forth from the startling evil spear and engulfed the blade storm instantly. The flying saber shards were shattered into dust by the startling evil spear's berserk power and scattered in midair. The blade storm was destroyed by a single move from the Thunder Emperor. Perfected immortal Fei Yun finally lowered his head. He could not help but admit that the difference between the two of them was way too great. Previously, he even boasted that if the Thunder Emperor was born in the same era as him, the latter would not be able to obtain the glory of the supreme perfected immortal. Now that he thought about it, it was truly laughable. Perfected immortal Fei Yun swiped his storage bag and took out a teleportation talisman. He tore it apart and prepared to leave. The void behind him suddenly collapsed and a gigantic dark tunnel appeared. Perfected immortal Fei Yun's figure disappeared within. Trying to flee? The Thunder Emperor sneered and vanished from the spot in a flash. Buzz! The startling evil spear arrived instantly and its gigantic spearhead shone with the light of thunder as it streaked through the void, as though the entire world was trembling in sorrow. A blood beam burst forth from the dark tunnel. The Thunder Emperor raised his startling evil spear and perfected immortal Fei Yun's figure was sent flying from the spatial tunnel. Perfected immortal Fei Yun did not dare to let his essence spirit leave his body in the spatial tunnel either. Without the protection of his body, even the essence spirit of a perfected immortal could not withstand the pressure of the spatial tunnel. A gigantic hole appeared in perfected immortal Fei Yun's chest because of the startling evil spear and blood gushed out like a fountain. The startling evil spear was a pure yang spirit treasure and the power of thunder that surrounded it was adhered to the wound. Even perfected immortal Fei Yun who could be reborn with a drop of blood would not be able to heal the wound within a short period of time. Feng Kantian, you can't kill me. Perfected immortal Fei Yun endured the pain and grit his teeth. I'm from Imperial Wind Temple. Before perfected immortal Fei Yun could finish, the Thunder Emperor stabbed in reverse and pierced his glabella, destroying his essence spirit on the spot. I'll kill you even if you're a legacy disciple of Imperial Wind Temple. The Thunder Emperor sneered, "You're way too naive to think that you can suppress me with Imperial Wind Temple." Who was Feng Kantian back then? The person who almost established an immortal kingdom in the divine firmament immortal domain and almost became a king after entering the grotto heaven realm. He could fight against immortal kings and look down on divine firmament palace, even breaking off ties with the upper world factions of the entire divine firmament immortal domain. How could he fear the reputation of Imperial Wind Temple? On the other side, Prince Yuanzhe and Lone Star joined forces with many Green Cloud County Earth and Heaven immortal guards to shatter the Black Tortoise Sacred Soul before long. Although the Black Tortoise Sacred Soul was strong, it could only defeat a top-tier Heaven immortal expert. It could not withstand the encirclement of so many Heaven immortal experts at all. The moment the Black Tortoise's sacred soul shattered was the moment the Thunder Emperor dispelled the Blade Storm. When Prince Yuanzhe saw that the situation was bad, he had no choice but to leave in regret. The other cultivators dispersed as well, afraid that they would be killed by the Thunder Emperor. Even perfected immortal Jing Yu had already escaped from this place when he saw perfected immortal Fei Yun defeated. He ran to the horizon and was almost about to disappear from everyone's line of sight. The Thunder Emperor glared at perfected immortal Jing Yu with a cold expression. "Don't go." Just as the Thunder Emperor was about to chase after perfected immortal Jing Yu, perfected immortal Burial Knight suddenly spoke and shook his head gently. "We can't linger here. Those two can catch up at any moment. You can't defeat them yet." The Thunder Emperor narrowed his eyes slightly and took a deep breath, gradually calming down. Of the two people mentioned by perfected immortal Burial Knight, one was the heir of King Jin, King Anshi, and the other was King Tianxing. Those were two immortal kings. For the past year, he had not been able to escape the pursuit of the two immortal kings completely. Even if his injuries recovered, it would be difficult for him to fight against immortal kings, let alone the fact that he had yet to recover. Prince Yuanzhe had clearly hidden this plan from the heir of King Jin and King Tianxing. However, the news of such an intense battle in the soaring Dragon Mountain range could not be hidden for long. Given the methods of immortal kings, they could release major transference to tear through the void and teleport far away. If the heir of King Jin and King Tianxing knew about this, they would arrive here within a few breaths. At that time, not only him, even perfected immortal Burial Knight, Su Zimo and Feng Zi would die here. "Let's leave first." The Thunder Emperor picked up the storage bag of the naked burly man and said in a deep voice. Perfected immortal Burial Knight took out a teleportation talisman and tore it apart, revealing a spatial tunnel beside it. The Thunder Emperor protected Su Zimo and Feng Zi and entered the tunnel with perfected immortal Burial Knight, disappearing. Peace returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Chapter 2038, Thunder Jade Pendant. Chapter 2038, Thunder Jade Pendant. Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, Solar Lunar County. In a dense forest outside Tsangyu City, the mountains were continuous and the walls were extremely steep. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the void above a mountain peak and four figures descended. They were the Thunder Emperor, perfected immortal Burial Knight, Su Zimo and Feng Zi. "Where am I?" Su Zimo descended and looked around. Perfected immortal Burial Knight took out a map and compared it carefully. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Given the teleportation distance of this major transference talisman, we must have already left the range of Green Cloud County. This should be Solar Lunar County, somewhere near Tsangyu City. We're safe for the time being. Thank you, old friend." The Thunder Emperor patted perfected immortal Burial Knight on the shoulder and said emotionally, "It's been more than 400,000 years since we last met. I'm old now." Perfected immortal Burial Knight said softly. To begin with, he did not have much lifespan left. Now that he was severely injured after this battle, his remaining lifespan must have been cut significantly further. Even if he recuperates in the future, he might not be able to live for long. Perfected immortals had a lifespan of 500,000 years. If not for the fact that the Thunder Emperor was half a step into the Grotto Heaven realm back then and his lifespan had increased to 1 million years, he should be similar to perfected immortal Burial Knight by now. Both of them came from Tianhuang mainland and ascended together back then. They fought countless battles side by side and experienced life and death. This was a feeling that no one else could understand. "I'm sorry." As though he recalled something, perfected Immortal Burial Knight's tone turned deep as he said, "I didn't take good care of Yunju." Feng Yunju was the Thunder Emperor's only son and Feng Zi's father. Yunju, that child. The Thunder Emperor had a dejected expression and his eyes revealed a deep sadness. "How did he die?" After a long silence, the Thunder Emperor asked. For the past year, the Thunder Emperor had only heard some fragmented news and knew that his son was killed by the heir of King Jin. However, he did not know the details. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight glanced at Feng Zi and hesitated for a moment before recounting the past. After the Thunder Emperor was suppressed, Perfected Immortal Burial Knight and Feng Yunju established Remnant Knight. Under the lead of the two of them, they often looked for trouble with the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom and took revenge fanatically with endless assassination attempts. In the most serious case, a county governor of the Great Jin dynasty was assassinated, causing the Immortal Kingdom to be shaken and King Jin was enraged. Thereafter, the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom obtained news from somewhere and captured Lu Xuansu, Feng Yunzhou's Dao companion and Feng Zi's mother. The heir of King Jin made use of this opportunity to force Feng Yunju to appear and fight openly. Both of them were perfected immortal experts at that time and were even peerless monster incarnates among perfected immortals. This battle was also watched by everyone. It was an earth-shaking battle and even the world lost its luster. In the end, Feng Yunju was the one who gained the upper hand. Seeing that the Prince of King Jin was in a critical situation, an execution guard of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom deliberately suppressed Lu Xuansu and killed her in front of Feng Yunju. At that point, Perfected Immortal Burial Knight sighed gently and could not continue. At the side, Feng Zi was already in tears. Su Zimo was silent. There was no room for distraction in a fight between top cultivators. A single mistake could result in victory and death. It was impossible to imagine the psychological impact on Feng Yunju as he watched the execution guard kill Lu Xuansu. It was naturally not hard to imagine that Feng Yunju would be defeated and killed. Su Zimo looked at Feng Zi. Back then, this woman saw her parents suffer such a vicious attack with her own eyes. It must have left an irrecoverable wound in her heart. At that moment, Su Zimo suddenly understood her coldness, her guardedness, her reticence and her fearlessness towards death. Feng Zi did not trust anyone and was guarded. It was not only because she had cultivated the Tao of assassination, but also because she had suffered such a huge blow in the past. No matter how severely injured Feng Zi was, she did not seem to feel any pain and was expressionless the entire time. Perhaps it was because any pain was far less than a fraction of the pain in her heart. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt a sense of pity for Feng Zi. The Thunder Emperor grit his teeth and gripped his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He tried his best to catch his breath before calming down. After being suppressed for more than 400,000 years, he had experienced and endured too much as well. Nothing could shake his heart anymore. The Thunder Emperor turned around and merely looked at Feng Zi opposite him emotionally. His heart ached and he was at a loss as his eyes reddened. Feng Zi's expression was extremely complicated as well, as though she did not dare to meet the Thunder Emperor's gaze. She opened her mouth, as though she wanted to say something. However, she could not bring herself to address him. After all, this was the first actual meeting between the two of them. "Are you really the child of Yunju and Xuansu?" The Thunder Emperor's voice trembled. He had been suppressed in the 10 Absolute Hell for more than 400,000 years and did not know of Feng Zi's existence at all. Feng Zi nodded in a small and imperceptible manner. She opened her mouth again and called out softly, "Grandpa." Although the voice was soft, it was extremely clear in the Thunder Emperor's ears, causing his heart to skip a beat. He hurried forward and hugged Feng Zi, saying tragically, good child, good child." Actually, back in the 10 Absolute Hell, the Thunder Emperor noticed Feng Zi's existence. In fact, he could sense an inexplicable familiarity from Feng Zi. However, he had just escaped and was fighting against many perfected immortals and was in no mood to think about such things. When Perfected Immortal Burial Knight saw that, He smiled in a rare manner and said, "Now that I've seen you guys reunite, I can finally rest easy and die without regrets. I'll leave Z in your care from now on." When he heard that, the Thunder Emperor shuddered and separated from Feng Zi, as though he recalled something. The Thunder Emperor first took out 2 jade pendants from his storage bag and placed them on his glabella. He injected a power of thunder and gave them to Su Zimo and Feng Zi. "Take this jade pendant with you," the Thunder Emperor said. Although Su Zimo was puzzled, he still hung the jade pendant on his waist. The Thunder Emperor said, "The 2 of you have already escaped but were found by the execution guards because a commander of the Heaven Execution Guards know a tracking technique. This tracking technique uses fresh blood as a medium and is known as the blood guidance secret skill. As long as your bloodline is leaked, the other party will control it to track you down." Su Zimo's eyes revealed a look of realization. It was no wonder why they were quickly found by Prince Yuan Zuo despite their escape. It was because the 2 of them were injured in the main hall of the prince's residence and their bloodlines were leaked. "Although this jade pendant is ordinary, it contains my thunder aura and can sever the power of the blood guidance secret skill. You guys have to carry it with you at all times," the Thunder Emperor instructed. "When your cultivation realms reach a certain level like the Heaven Essence realm, you can remove this jade pendant." Chapter 2039, True Opponent. Chapter 2039, True Opponent. Suddenly, the Thunder Emperor's mood darkened. He stood on the peak and looked into the distance with a conflicted expression in silence. A long time later, the Thunder Emperor said softly, "I'm about to leave Divine Firmament Mainland." Feng Zi said hurriedly, "Grandpa, where are you going?" "We'll go together. You're the true soul of Remnant Night." Perfected Immortal Burial Night said, "Remnant Night will be wherever you are." The Thunder Emperor shook his head gently. "You guys can't follow me." "Why not?" Feng Zi had already guessed the answer when she asked that question. The Thunder Emperor sighed gently. "I'm the target of King Anshi and King Tianxing. If you stay by my side, you can die at any moment. We can only survive if I separate from you guys." Perfected Immortal Burial Night had known the Thunder Emperor for many years and quickly understood what he meant. The Thunder Emperor might not be able to escape from the hands of 2 immortal kings alone. If he brought Perfected Immortal Burial Night and Feng Zi along, it would be inconvenient for them to move and they would be a greater target. At that time, the 3 of them would die. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and asked, "Senior Thunder Emperor, what if you can break through to the Grotto Heaven realm and become an immortal king? Will you be able to suppress King Anshi and King Tianxing? Will you no longer have to escape? Become a king after advancing to the Grotto Heaven realm?" The Thunder Emperor smiled and shook his head. "It's not that easy to step into the Grotto Heaven realm and become an immortal king. Because of the help of your 7 glow immortal ginseng this time round, I'll be able to recover after recuperating for a period of time. However, back then, I failed to become a king. If I want to attempt to break through to the Grotto Heaven realm again, the difficulty will increase by 100, 1,000 times. If I don't have any great opportunities, I might not be able to break through to the Grotto Heaven realm in my lifetime." Su Zimo remained silent in pity. Although the Thunder Emperor escaped, the unforeseen event back then still caused him irreparable damage. Just for the long period of time that he was suppressed in the 10 Absolute Hell for more than 400,000 years, who could compensate him? The Thunder Emperor continued, "Furthermore, even if I can advance to the Grotto Heaven realm and become a king, I have to leave this place. My opponents are not just 1 or 2 immortal kings." The Thunder Emperor hesitated. King Anshi and King Tianxing were backed by the entire Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Even if the Thunder Emperor was conferred the title of king, he was weak alone and it would be difficult for him to fight against an immortal kingdom. "Where are you going?" Perfected Immortal Burial Night asked, "Which of the 9 immortal domains is it? Or is it Lin Zhon's place?" Lin Zhon was the human emperor. Pausing for a moment, Perfected Immortal Burial Night continued, "However, I heard that for some reason, Lin Zhon was severely injured thousands of years ago. He originally had a chance to advance to the Emperor realm. Because of that injury, he lost the chance to become an immortal emperor. I wonder if he's recovered now." When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Thousands of years ago? Could it be the time when the human emperor descended? Su Zimo recounted the 10,000 race meet in Tianhuang mainland hurriedly. The Thunder Emperor and perfected Immortal Burial Knight were moved when they heard that. Lin Zhon is truly worthy of his title as the eternal human emperor. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight lamented. The Thunder Emperor sighed. If one forcefully descends to the lower world without reaching the Emperor realm, they will definitely suffer a backlash from the heaven and earth laws. It might be difficult for them to recover from such an injury for the rest of their lives. In fact, it'll be extremely difficult if they want to become an emperor ever again. At that time, the human emperor descended upon Tianhuang mainland and his body was destroyed by the heaven and earth laws, leaving with severe injuries. Su Zimo had not imagined that the human emperor's descent would have such a huge impact on him, such that he missed the chance to become an immortal emperor. Even so, the human emperor did not hesitate and descended upon Tianhuang mainland, turning the tides to save the human race from danger. It was only at that moment that Su Zimo realized how much the human emperor had paid to descend. According to the Thunder Emperor, there was a high chance that the damage caused by the heaven and earth laws would accompany the human emperor for the rest of his life and he would never have the chance to advance to the emperor realm in the future. The Thunder Emperor shook his head. Lin Zhon can't protect me. If I go to his place, I'll implicate him instead. At that point, Su Zimo could not help but ask, although the great Jin Immortal Kingdom is powerful, it's only in the divine firmament immortal domain. Could King Jin's reach extend so far? Do you really think that King Jin is the only one who wants me dead? The Thunder Emperor asked instead. Su Zimo was momentarily stunned. The Thunder Emperor had a dejected expression and smiled. Back then, I was in seclusion in Divine Firmament Palace and was prepared to break through to the perfected immortal realm and step into the Grotto Heaven realm. Without that person's silent approval, King Tianxing would not have had a chance at all and he would not have dared to attack me. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly in shock and realization. Although the Thunder Emperor did not say it explicitly, the person he was referring to should be the master of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, the Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor. Fengzi had once said that the Thunder Emperor was like the sun in the midday skies back then and obtained the position of a supreme perfected immortal. He was even taken in by the Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor. In other words, the Thunder Emperor was considered as the disciple of the Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor. If not for the acquiescence of the Divine Firmament Immortal Emperor, how would King Tianxing dare to attack the disciple of the Immortal Emperor in Divine Firmament Palace? The Thunder Emperor was severely injured and his Dao fruit shattered, suppressed in the 10 Absolute Hell. With King Jin ascending the throne and establishing the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, King Tianxing was also placed in an important position. Neither of them received any punishment. That further confirmed the Thunder Emperor's guess. Earlier on, the Thunder Emperor said that his opponents were not one or two immortal kings. He hesitated and did not continue. Now, Su Zimo realized that the Thunder Emperor was not only facing the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, but also the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain or even an unimaginably massive faction. The Thunder Emperor's grand wish triggered the interests of all the native immortals of the upper world and shook their foundation. Therefore, the Thunder Emperor had to die. In that case, the Thunder Emperor might not even be able to reside in the entire 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, let alone the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Where are you going? Perfected Immortal Burial Knight asked. Pure Land of Bliss. The heavenly world was divided into 3 major regions, the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, the Pure Land of Bliss and the Fiend Domain. In the middle was a sacred tree that connected everything to form a gigantic world. There were mostly immortal cultivators in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. As for the Pure Land of Bliss, most of them were monks. The Fiend Domain was filled with fiend sect cultivators. Given my situation, I'm afraid the Pure Land of Bliss won't be able to accommodate me either. The Thunder Emperor pondered for a moment and a decisive look flashed through his eyes. I'm prepared to head to the Fiend Domain. Fiend Domain. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight was alarmed. Most of the cultivators in the Fiend Domain are evil and bloodthirsty, doing everything according to their wishes while being completely unreasonable. There are dangers everywhere and every step is dangerous. If you go there, Foo. The Thunder Emperor smiled. On the surface, the 9-firmament immortal domain is filled with righteous gentlemen. However, that's all there is to what they do. The lives taken by the hands of these immortal cultivators are no less than those of the fiend domain. Suzimo nodded to himself. Everything else aside, the fact that they forced 10,000 living beings of the lower worlds to kill one another in the hunting meet just for their entertainment was enough to send chills down one's spine. Furthermore, from what I know, not everyone from the fiend domain is evil. The Thunder Emperor continued, there are also cultivators like me who are not tolerated by the immortal and Buddhist Taos and can only head to the fiend domain to cultivate. Chapter 2040 Heir of King Jin. Chapter 2040 Heir of King Jin. When the few of them saw that the Thunder Emperor was determined, they did not persuade him further. Furthermore, be it perfected Immortal Burial Knight or Fengzi, both knew that the Thunder Emperor only had a chance of survival after leaving the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. If he continued to linger here, he would definitely die. Although the Thunder Emperor had already made up his mind, he did not leave immediately. He merely looked at perfected Immortal Burial Knight and Fengzi quietly with reluctance. He had just reunited with Fengzi. If not for the circumstances, why would he have made up his mind to leave? Perfected Immortal Burial Knight said, to think that we would have to part again after being separated for more than 400,000 years. Leave in peace. I'll strive to live a few more years and help you take care of Z. Thank you, brother. The Thunder Emperor nodded. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight took out a jar of strong wine from his storage bag and slapped away the mud seal, prepared to pour a few bowls to bid farewell to the Thunder Emperor. It's way too pretentious to drink from a bowl. The Thunder Emperor waved his hand and said, take out 4 jars. It'll only be satisfying if the 4 of us have one each. All right. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight said, apart from you, I'm afraid no one will drink with me in the future. As he said that, he took out 3 jars of strong wine and distributed them to Suzimo and Fengzi. Come, brother Su. The Thunder Emperor looked at Suzimo and raised his wine jar, shouting, Senior Thunder Emperor. Suzimo picked up the wine jar hurriedly. The Thunder Emperor's expression turned stiff as he said, Brother Su, why are you still calling me senior? You're being too polite. You and I have the same feelings and personalities. You can just call me your brother. How can I? Suzimo declined hurriedly. Be it in Tianhuang mainland, the upper world or in terms of cultivation realm, the Thunder Emperor was his senior no matter what. Fengzi frowned as well. If Suzimo was on par with the Thunder Emperor, wouldn't she be a status lower for no reason? The Thunder Emperor burst into laughter and patted Suzimo on the shoulder. All those seniority rules are bullshit. They are nothing in my eyes. If I like someone, I'll befriend them. If I don't like them, it doesn't matter even if they're an immortal emperor. Brother Su, if you don't mind, drink this jar of wine. Suzimo's heart skipped a beat when he heard the Thunder Emperor's heroic words. His blood chi surged as he shouted, all right, Brother Feng, I'll toast you. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight and Fengzi raised their wine jars as well. The 4 wine jars collided with a crisp sound and they raised their heads to drink. The 4 of them knew that everyone would leave after the jar of strong wine. The heavenly world was vast and the future was murky with dangers lurking everywhere. The 4 of them might not even have the chance to meet again in the future. The 4 of them did not stop until they finished the jar of strong wine in one gulp. Under normal circumstances, given Suzimo's cultivation, ordinary wine would not make him feel drunk at all. However, after drinking that jar of strong wine, Suzimo felt his cheeks flush and his head spin. At the side, Fengzi could no longer hold on. Her cheeks were flushed red and she swayed. Ha 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 ha. The Thunder Emperor burst into laughter and praised Suzimo, you're not drunk after drinking this jar of wine. As expected of the Green Lotus bloodline, this strong wine in perfected Immortal Burial Knight's collection was not ordinary wine. Even with their cultivation realms, they would feel tipsy drinking that wine. Brother Su. The Thunder Emperor patted Suzimo heavily on the shoulder and said with a fake smile, we can be on the same level, but you can't take advantage of my granddaughter. Things between you two will depend on yourselves. Su Zimo had a feeling that there was a deeper meaning in the Thunder Emperor's words and gaze. However, he was a little dizzy and could not think too much about it. He merely said instinctively, "Of course. Time to go." The Thunder Emperor took a deep breath of air and his eyes regained clarity. Standing on the mountain peak, he looked back at the rivers and mountains beneath his feet and said sternly, "One day, I, Feng Kantien, will step foot on this land openly." With that said, a bolt of lightning flashed on the Thunder Emperor's body and he fled into the distance, disappearing at the end of the horizon in the blink of an eye. Standing on the peak, Su Zimo's green lotus bloodline surged continuously and he gradually woke up from the gentle breeze. "What are your plans?" Perfected Immortal Burial Knight asked. "Do you want to join us?" Su Zimo thought for a moment and shook his head. "I don't think so. I've experienced too much in the past year. I'm prepared to find a place to cultivate in seclusion." "That's good too." Perfected Immortal Burial Knight nodded and instructed, "Be careful not to expose your identity. Also, try not to use your tripod in the future." "Thank you for your reminder, Senior." Su Zimo expressed his thanks. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight handed over a pitch-black badge that was 2 fingers wide with a dagger surrounded by lightning drawn on it. "This is a badge. If you see the same emblem anywhere, you can find anyone from Remnant Knight." Su Zimo received the badge and expressed his thanks once more. Perfected Immortal Burial Knight nodded and supported Feng Zi, who was still drunk, disappearing into the void. Su Zimo did not linger at the peak and headed down. Suddenly, a gigantic crack appeared in midair of the soaring Dragon Mountain range, revealing a dark tunnel within. A figure strode out with one hand behind his back. He had a calm expression and every single move he made exuded the aura of a royal aristocratic family. His eyes were like gems in the depths of the sea, deep and mysterious. The heir of King Jin, King Anshi. Arriving above the soaring Dragon Mountain range, the heir of King Jin looked at the dilapidated battlefield and the corpse of the naked burly man with a cold expression. "Yuan Zhuo, Jing Yu." Suddenly, the heir of King Jin spoke and asked coldly, "Are you guys still alive?" Although the voice of the heir of King Jin was not loud, it could extend endlessly and spread for thousands of kilometers. Prince Yuan Zhuo and perfected Immortal Jing Yu, who were escaping, shuddered and heard the sound of the heir of King Jin in their minds at the same time. Pest. A voice transmission technique that spanned thousands of kilometers. The two of them shuddered and did not dare to hesitate. They turned around hurriedly and headed towards the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Before long, the two of them arrived at the mountain range. At the same time, another spatial tunnel opened up in midair on the other side and King Tianxing walked out with a cold expression and a murderous aura. "Where is he?" King Tianxing asked in a deep voice. "Where is he?" The heir of King Jin was expressionless and no one could read his emotions. He merely looked at Prince Yuan Zhuo and perfected Immortal Jing Yu calmly and asked softly. However, Prince Yuan Zhuo and perfected Immortal Jing Yu could not withstand the pressure and knelt down with a thud. Elder brother, please forgive me." Prince Yuan Zhuo could flaunt and boss around in front of others. However, he was as honest as a child in front of the heir of King Jin. Prince Yuan Zhuo knew his brother's methods the best. "I had already planned everything and could definitely suppress Feng Kantien. But who knew that Su Zimo would appear?" Before Prince Yuan Zhuo could explain, he was interrupted by the heir of King Jin. "Where is he?" The heir of King Jin merely repeated his words and his voice turned increasingly gentle. Instantly, Prince Yuan Zhuo broke out in cold sweat. Chapter 2041, Wanted Notice. Chapter 2041, Wanted Notice. He escaped. Prince Yuan Zhuo's voice was trembling and he was drenched in sweat, not daring to look up at the heir of King Jin. "Very good." The heir of King Jin nodded slightly and looked at Prince Yuan Zhuo before asking, "You should know who Feng Kantien is, right?" "Why yes." Prince Yuan Zhuo nodded. "You should know how much of an impact Feng Kantyen's escape has on the great Jin Immortal Kingdom, right?" The heir of King Jin asked again. His tone was calm and emotionless. "I do." Prince Yuan Zhuo gulped. Pausing for a moment, the gaze of the heir of King Jin suddenly turned incomparably sharp, like a sharp knife that could pierce Prince Yuan Zhuo's chest. Since you know everything, why didn't you inform me beforehand about this? There was a shuddering power in the voice of the heir of King Jin. I. Prince Yuan's face was pale as a sheet as his body trembled. He raised his head and tried his best to explain. Feng Kantian was already severely injured. I wanted to suppress him before handing him over to you. Nonsense. Suddenly, the heir of King Jin hollered and waved his sleeves, causing an invisible force to collide heavily against Prince Yuan's through the void. Bang! Prince Yuan's was sent flying by that attack and fell dozens of feet away. He spat out a mouthful of blood and sprawled on the ground like a dead dog. That attack from the heir of King Jin had broken more than half of his bones. He nearly fainted from the pain. Yuan's even in front of me, you're still spouting nonsense. The heir of King Jin said coldly with an icy expression, you just want to fight for credit. You want to perform in front of father. You want to suppress me. What sort of a character was the heir of King Jin? Initially, he was ranked 7th among the many descendants. However, because of his ruthless methods, decisiveness and extraordinary endowment, he rose step by step. The 6 older brothers in front of him died for various reasons and King Anshi was now the current heir. Everyone in the royal family knew that the death of the 6 princes was definitely related to King Anshi. However, King Jin merely turned a blind eye to this matter. King Jin had many descendants and he was even happy to see such a situation. That was the only way a truly ruthless person could stand out from the many princes and inherit his throne and endless territory. The heir of King Jin had experienced too much bloodshed and Prince Yuan's thoughts could not be hidden from him. Elder brother, please spare me. Please spare my life. Prince Yuan's crawled bit by bit in the direction of the heir of King Jin, coughing blood and begging for mercy in a miserable manner. King Tianxing stood at the side expressionlessly with his hands behind his back. He had seen too many fights between princes. He was only loyal to King Jin and would definitely not interfere. There was no pity in the eyes of the heir of King Jin when he saw Prince Yuan's pitiful appearance. Bloodline and kinship did not matter to him. Furthermore, they were only half-brothers with different mothers. I can understand why you want to take credit and stand out. The heir of King Jin said coldly, however, you should know your limits. Elder brother, I know my mistake now. More than half of Prince Yuan's bones were shattered as he crawled on the ground. He was covered in dust and looked wretched. His bloodline could not recover within a short period of time after the attack of the heir of King Jin. More than a year ago, when Feng Kantian escaped from Absolute Thunder City under your jurisdiction, I did not punish you. The heir of King Jin continued, to think that you would still dare to act on your own and commit such a huge mistake. Perfected Immortal Jingyu glanced at Prince Yuan's at the side and sighed internally. He knew that if he did not stand out and say something, the heir of King Jin would vent his anger on him as well and he might even die here. Your Highness, please allow me to say a few words. Perfected Immortal Jingyu said in a deep voice. His Highness Yuan's preparations this time round were indeed foolproof. He even invited Perfected Immortal Fei Yun of Imperial Wind Temple to deal with Feng Kantian. In reality, Feng Kantian was severely injured by Yu and King Tianxing and was indeed vulnerable. He could not defend against our encirclement. Unexpectedly, Perfected Immortal Jingyu recounted in detail how Suzimo offered the 7 glow Immortal Ginseng as well as the appearance of Perfected Immortal Burial Night. That was what happened. Your Highness, please let us off and allow us to atone for our sins. Perfected Immortal Jingyu kowtowed and begged. The gaze of the heir of King Jin shifted between Perfected Immortal Jingyu and Prince Yuan's in silence. The world fell into a dead silence. For Prince Yuan's and Perfected Immortal Jingyu, every single breath felt as long as 1,000 years. Their lives depended on a single thought from the heir of King Jin. Scram. The heir of King Jin said indifferently, from now on, I don't want to hear any news of Remnant Knight within the territory of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Definitely. Prince Yuan's was overjoyed. He knew that since the heir of King Jin said that, his life was saved. Thank you, Your Highness. Perfected Immortal Jingyu kowtowed once more and said, from now on, I'll definitely do my best to repay your highness for not killing me. King Tianxing watched coldly from the sidelines in silence but nodded to himself. The reason why the heir of King Jin did not kill Prince Yuanzhe was because the latter was of no threat to him. After today's incident, Prince Yuanzhe would not dare to harbor any other thoughts in front of him. What the heir of King Jin did even managed to take perfected Immortal Jingyu under his wing. When King Tianxing saw that the matter was over, he said slowly, "Your Highness, let's chase after Feng Cantian first. After obtaining the 7-glow Immortal Ginseng, Feng Cantian's injuries will recover as long as he recuperates for a period of time. At that time, it won't be easy to encircle him. Let's go." The heir of King Jin nodded and waved his palm, slashing in front of him. The void in front of the heir of King Jin was torn by his palm like a piece of silk, revealing a dark spatial tunnel. The heir of King Jin disappeared in a flash. King Tianxing followed closely behind. The crack in midair healed slowly and the terrifying might that lingered in the skies of the soaring Dragon Mountain range dissipated as well. Perfected Immortal Jingyu heaved a sigh of relief. A gentle breeze blew and his body turned cold. Unknowingly, his clothes were drenched in sweat. "Your Highness, how are you?" Perfected Immortal Jingyu hurried forward and helped Prince Yuanzhe up. He took out a few pills and fed him. Prince Yuanzhe's expression was extremely grim and his eyes were filled with endless hatred. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Jingyu, gather all the forces in Green Cloud County and search for remnant night survivors. Kill them without mercy. The most important thing is to search for Su Zimo. The hatred in my heart won't be appeased until I tear him into pieces and burn his bones into ashes." Prince Yuanzhe had a menacing expression and grit his teeth so tightly that they were about to shatter. "There's more." Prince Yuanzhe continued, "Send this wanted notice to the other counties and get them to help search as well. I want Su Zimo to have no place to hide in the territory of the Great Jin dynasty. Anyone who provides clues will be rewarded handsomely. Even if you have to dig underground, find him." Chapter 2042 Astral Sect. Chapter 2042 Astral Sect. After Su Zimo left the mountain, he was in no hurry to leave. Instead, he made use of the Trinity Auspicious Jade to change his appearance. Prince Yuanzhe and perfected Immortal Jingyu were not dead and would definitely not let things go. Given Prince Yuanzhe's power and status, he would definitely take revenge on Su Zimo fanatically. If he were to walk with his true appearance, he would definitely be targeted. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo turned into an ugly burly man. He had a majestic figure and wore rough linen clothes. His chest was half exposed and he held a wine jar in his hands with half-opened eyes. Su Zimo took a few wobbly steps. When he felt that there were no loopholes, he headed towards Tsangyu City, which was the closest to this place. There were more than 100 cities under the jurisdiction of Solar Lunar County. Every city ruled over a large territory. Although he was the closest to Tsangyu City, Su Zimo took more than 3 days to arrive at the city. Carrying the wine jar, Su Zimo glanced at the city gate drowsily and staggered in. When the guards guarding the city gate saw the detestable burly man who reeked of wine, they revealed disgusted expressions and refused to take another look. The guards on both sides waved casually and let Su Zimo enter the city. Su Zimo was secretly delighted. This was also the reason why he had transformed. The more disgusted others were, the less they would pay attention to him. Su Zimo did not wander around the city. Instead, he headed straight for the teleportation formation. He had to leave the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom as soon as possible. Although he had the Trinity Auspicious Jade, this treasure might not be able to protect him completely. He would only be truly safe after leaving the territory of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. The territory of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom was vast. Given his cultivation, if he wanted to travel alone, even if there were no obstacles, it would take him hundreds or even thousands of years while traveling day and night. Furthermore, he was alone and did not know what dangers he would encounter on the way. Those hundreds or thousands of years would be wasted. Using the teleportation formation to leave was the fastest. About 2 hours later, Su Zimo crossed most of the city and arrived at the teleportation formation. A large crowd gathered at the front and blocked the entrance of the teleportation formation hall, causing a commotion. From afar, Suzimo saw dozens of guards guarding the entrance of the hall, scrutinizing every cultivator who wanted to enter. The dozens of guards were all Earth Immortals. Behind the dozens of people, 2 people sat on chairs and surveyed the crowd with burning gazes and terrifying auras. There was a high chance that the 2 of them were Heaven Immortal experts. What's going on? Why did it suddenly become so strict? Haven't you heard? Something big happened in Green Cloud County. What happened? I heard that supreme perfected immortal Feng Kantien from more than 400,000 years ago escaped from the 10 Absolute Hell with the help of his surviving followers, and his whereabouts are unknown. Right now, they're all searching for those surviving followers. Someone at the side whispered, I also heard that a clone that Prince Yuan Zhuo of Green Cloud County painstakingly cultivated was crippled by someone called Suzimo, and he suffered a huge loss. That's right. It's said that anyone who can provide clues to Suzimo will be rewarded handsomely. A series of trivial discussions broke out from the crowd at the front. Suzimo blinked. To think that news would spread so quickly. He was still a step too late. What's happening at the front? Why were some Grade 1 Earth Immortals brought to the 2 Heaven Immortal experts alone for another check? Someone asked softly. Suzimo focused his gaze. In the crowd, any Grade 1 Earth Immortal would be singled out by the guards on both sides of the hall. The 2 Heaven Immortal experts searched the Grade 1 Earth Immortal's storage bag before asking the latter's essence spirit to leave his body. Suzimo frowned slightly and his ears twitched. Before long, he heard a few conversations. What are we doing? Why are we targeting these Grade 1 Earth Immortals? It's said that Suzimo is a Grade 1 Earth Immortal. However, this person knows myriad transformations and can change his appearance. How is that possible? Myriad transformations is a supreme divine power. I'm not sure. However, even myriad transformations can only change one's body and not their essence spirit. Therefore, as long as one reveals their essence spirit, they will know if this person was transformed by Suzimo. With a grim expression, Suzimo retreated silently from the crowd. The situation was bad. Initially, he wanted to make use of the Trinity Auspicious Jade to change his appearance and leave. But now that the surroundings of the teleportation formation were so carefully checked, if he went forward, he would reveal his true form even with the Trinity Auspicious Jade. This plan could not work. Suzimo did not dare to take the risk and was prepared to leave Tsangyu City for the time being. According to the situation, there was a high chance that the entire city would be under martial law. At that time, it would be difficult for him to escape even if he wanted to. Suzimo walked towards the city gate. Before long, a group of Tsangyu city guards arrived in midair and dispersed. Each of them held a painting in their hands. One of the guards descended not far away from Suzimo and arrived at the city wall. He opened the painting in his hands and pasted it. The painting depicted a figure in green robes with a handsome face. It was Suzimo. Beneath the painting were a few lines of words. The general meaning was that anyone who could provide clues about this person would be rewarded handsomely. Suzimo knew that he had already transformed into another appearance. If no one asked him to reveal his essence spirit, he would not be discovered. However, he still felt guilty when he saw the painting. I can't linger here. When Suzimo saw the guard beside him turn around and look in his direction, he hurriedly raised his head and drank a mouthful of strong wine. He burped and swayed out of the city. Before long, he disappeared into the crowd. After leaving the city, Suzimo checked the map and headed east. He walked for 2 days. Along the way, he would see groups of immortal soldiers from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom passing by from time to time, searching everywhere. Relying on the Trinity Auspicious Jade, Suzimo changed his appearance and did not encounter any situation where his essence spirit had to be exposed. It was a close shave. However, this situation could not last long either. Suzimo lamented internally as well. The entire world belonged to the king. He had offended Prince Yuan Zhuo, and this was someone from the royal family of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. As long as he was in this land, there was almost no place for him. Even if he found a mountain range and opened up a cave abode, it would be difficult for him to continue cultivating. Someone would definitely locate him. Right then, in the forest at the side, a few cultivators walked together. They looked like black immortals, 2 grade 9 black immortals, 3 grade 8 black immortals and 2 grade 7 black immortals. Brother Liu, do you think Astral Sect will take us in? Among them, a young cultivator asked. Another older person said in a deep voice, probably. Astral Sect is only a black grade sect. We stand a chance. Astral Sect. Su Zimo murmured softly in deep thought. Chapter 2043 Secret News. Chapter 2043 Secret News. The City Lord of Dragon Abyss City, Shu Shi, had once told Su Zimo that in the divine firmament immortal domain or even the entire heavenly world, the major sects could be divided into 3 levels. Black, Earth and Heaven grades. There were only 4 heaven-grade immortal sects in the divine firmament immortal domain: Mountain Sea Immortal Sect, Imperial Wind Temple, Heaven and Earth Academy and Flying Immortal Sect. Back in the abyss of the Dragon Abyss Star, Su Zimo's essence spirit entered the dragon corpse and reanimated it, interacting with the experts of those sects. The sect masters of heaven-grade sects were all immortal kings. Beneath heaven was Earth. Sect masters of Earth-grade sects were usually at the perfected immortal realm. The most common ones were black-grade sects where the sect masters were usually heaven immortals. Astral Sect was a black-grade sect. Su Zimo thought to himself that rather than hiding outside in fear, he might as well hide in a sect and cultivate. Black-grade sects like this were way too common in the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Even if Prince Yuan's were hunted everywhere and came to a black-grade sect, he could not search the disciples one by one. The guards of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom guarded the major cities and fortresses and searched everywhere. They were already at their limits. It was impossible for them to run into a black-grade sect and search wantonly. At most, they would just pass down a wanted notice. Right now, the most important thing for Su Zimo was to cultivate in seclusion and raise his cultivation realm. When he came out of the Essence Spirit Mine this time round, he entered the 10 Absolute Hell and the Emperor's Tomb. He experienced many battles and witnessed too many experts fight and barely survived along the way. Those comprehension experiences were his most precious experiences. Furthermore, he had already accumulated a large number of spirit pills, essence spirit stones and other cultivation resources in his storage bag casually along the way. He had just broken through to the level 1 Earth Essence realm. As long as he had sufficient resources and time, his cultivation could advance continuously without encountering much obstacles. Most importantly, Su Zimo had benefited way too much in the past year. Breaking through to the Earth Essence realm was secondary. In the 10 Absolute Hell, he obtained the Void Thunder Manual. Although he inherited the Thunder Emperor's inheritance directly and could comprehend many things without even cultivating, there were still some insights that he had to comprehend himself. In the Emperor's Tomb, the third wall of the Hell Suppression Tripod was repaired. He had yet to cultivate a secret skill imparted to him by the Black Tortoise Sacred Soul. He did not comprehend the Prajna Nirvana Sutra on the third tripod wall either. There was also the mysterious Trinity Auspicious Jade. This treasure accompanying the Green Lotus True Body had endless uses. Up till now, Su Zimo had only discovered one of those abilities. If he wanted to cultivate and comprehend the secrets within, he would require a long period of seclusion cultivation. The path of cultivation was long. Even if one was lucky and had endless opportunities, those with extraordinary talent could not succeed overnight. Although the grade of Astral Sect was not high, it was suitable for Su Zimo to lay low and wait for an opportunity. At that thought, Su Zimo carried the wine jar and flew through the air, swaying towards the few people who spoke earlier on. "Hey, those few over there." Before Su Zimo got close, he shouted from afar, exhaling the smell of wine and cursing, "Bloody hell, I'm referring to the few of you." Now that he had changed his appearance, his words and actions had to change as well so that no one would see through him. The few cultivators on the other side looked up and saw an ugly cultivator smelling of wine walking over from afar. All of them revealed disgusted expressions. However, the older cultivator among them had a calm expression and whispered, "This is an Earth Immortal. Everyone, be careful not to anger him." Greetings, exalted Immortal. The older cultivator stood still and bowed to Susimo. Although the other young cultivators were unwilling, they bowed as well. Susimo glanced at the few people on the ground with an intoxicated expression. With a prideful expression, he burped and asked, "How do I get to Astral Sect?" A few young cultivators, especially the female cultivator, lowered their heads slightly with disgusted expressions. In fact, they did not even want to look at Susimo. The older cultivator smiled and said, "Exalted Immortal, follow this path and head east for more than 2,000 kilometers. That's the location of Astral Sect. There are 7 peaks in Astral Sect that are the most striking and easy to identify." Bloody hell, I actually got lost. Susimo cursed and took another mouthful of strong wine before swaying towards the east. The older cultivator heaved a sigh of relief. Where did this drunkard come from? How disgusting, a young man spat. Brother Liu, our family clan is rather strong in the vicinity of Tsangyu City. Why should we be afraid of an alcoholic? A young girl asked. The older cultivator shook his head. When you travel outside, you must not underestimate anyone. Even though he looks like his dead drunk, who knows what methods he has and what status he has? All these years, there have always been some aristocratic families in Solar Luna County that would send their talented clansmen to join Astral Sect. This person might also be from some aristocratic family. Another person asked, "Brother Liu, are the rumors about Astral Sect true? Is there really a cultivation technique comparable to a taboo mystic classic hidden in this black grade sect? That saying has been passed down for a long time and I don't know if it's true." The older cultivator said, "It's said that many years ago, an extraterritorial king came to Divine Firmament mainland and started a massacre. Among the immortal kings, no one was his match. Eventually, an immortal emperor attacked and killed him in that mountain range. Thereafter, the terrain of the mountain range changed and 7 mountain peaks rose against the tide, reaching the skies. The surrounding mountains rose and formed the current Astral Sect. Ever since then, there have been all sorts of legends in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain. The most widely spread one was that the extraterritorial king died and left his inheritance in that mountain range. Some people said that it was a cultivation technique called the Exalted Mystic Spirit. I can't remember its name either. Everyone behind him was engrossed and someone asked, "What happened after that?" The older cultivator smiled. Later on, many cultivators came to this mountain range, wanting to inherit the inheritance of this extraterritorial king and search for that ethereal cultivation technique. I heard that in the beginning, cultivators from the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, 9 Firmament Immortal domain, even the Pure Land of Bliss and Fiend domain came to obtain this opportunity. However, in the end, they returned empty-handed. Some people were unwilling to leave and guarded that mountain range all day long. Later on, they gradually developed into a sect and became the current Astral Sect. When Astral Sect was first established, there were even perfected immortals presiding over it. However, as time passed by and the first generation aged without anyone obtaining any opportunities, the number of cultivators that came to Astral Sect decreased. Up till now, only some aristocratic families in our Solar Luna County will send some disciples over. Actually, we don't bear much hope. Just take it as a training expedition. Everyone sighed when they heard that. The older cultivator shrugged his shoulders and shook his head with a smile. Actually, those are just rumors. I even heard that the king who died back then did not come from another territory, but another world instead. Another world? Everyone was stunned. The older cultivator said, "He's not someone from our heavenly world, but a king of another world." Chapter 2044 Entrance Test. Chapter 2044 Entrance Test. The few cultivators thought that Susimo had already gone far away and could not hear what they were saying. In reality, Susimo had the grade 10 Green Lotus true body and his hearing was strong. He heard their conversation clearly. "There's such a rumor," Susimo murmured softly. It seemed like Astral Gate was not an ordinary black grade sect. However, those rumors did not affect him much. He only wanted to enter Astral Sect this time round to search for a quiet place to cultivate in peace. After a period of time, when his cultivation advanced and the search outside gradually relaxed, he would leave Astral Sect. A few hours later, Suzimo's gaze froze and he finally caught sight of 7 majestic mountains standing on the horizon, almost at the same level as the skies. Astral Sect was right ahead. Before long, Suzimo arrived at the entrance of Astral Sect. There were already many cultivators gathered in front of the mountain gate. There were tens of thousands of them spread all over the mountains. There are so many people. Suzimo frowned. However, on second thought, it was good that there were more people. He would not attract attention even if he mixed in the crowd. Suzimo drank his strong wine and surveyed his surroundings with intoxicated eyes. He noticed that among the tens of thousands of cultivators, some were black immortals and even low-level ones. Some of them were earth immortals. In fact, he even caught sight of a few grade 7 earth immortals in the crowd. Among the group of cultivators, some of them were gathered with extraordinary bearings and similar attire. They wore the same badges and looked like they were from the same faction. According to the older cultivator from before, there was a high chance that these cultivators came from the same family clan. Suzimo swept his intoxicated gaze around and saw a grade 3 black immortal. He leaned forward and grabbed the latter to a corner. Bloody hell, a grade 3 black immortal like you came to join Astral Sect? Suzimo cursed and glared at that person drunkenly. The grade 3 black immortal was skinny and had a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks. His eyes darted around and he could not move at all against Suzimo's palm. Suzimo's breath reeked of wine and that person almost vomited. However, when he sensed Suzimo's powerful aura suppressing him completely, he swallowed the vomit in his mouth. The person's face flushed purple and he was so scared that he was about to cry. With a trembling voice, he said, "Exalted Immortal, I'm sorry, I was in the wrong. I'll leave now." When Suzimo saw that, he felt a sense of guilt. Initially, he did not want to reveal any loopholes. To think that he would scare this person out of his wits. Instantly, he released the person and harumphed coldly. "You're not allowed to leave. Come back." All right. I won't leave. I'll listen to you, Exalted Immortal." The person's voice was trembling. It was clear that he was scared out of his wits. He was completely stunned. He could neither leave nor not leave. Suzimo took out an essence condensation pill from his storage bag and flicked his finger gently, causing it to land in front of the person. "I'll ask you a few questions. Answer them truthfully. Exalted Immortal, please ask. I'll tell you everything I know." Although that person said that, he did not dare to take the minor essence condensation pill. Suzimo asked, "Why hasn't Astral Sect's recruitment of disciples started yet?" The person said hurriedly, "Exalted Immortal, you don't know. Every time Astral Sect opens its doors to take in disciples, it has to be during a fixed period. In a few days, it will officially begin." Suzimo acknowledged and asked again, "What are the rules for Astral Sect to accept disciples? Why do I see so many different cultivation realms?" "From what I know, Astral Sect recruits disciples not through cultivation realms, but through endowment and opportunities." The person said, "When the mountain gate is opened, the entrance test will begin at night on that stargazing platform." The person pointed in the direction of Astral Sect. Suzimo turned around. Behind the mountain gate of Astral Sect, a stone platform stood tall. The person continued, "It said that this stargazing platform is made from a meteor and can connect with the stars in the skies. As long as we stand on this stargazing platform and our bodies can trigger starlight, we'll be considered to have passed the test of Astral Sect and can join the sect." Suzimo nodded to himself. The entrance test of Astral Sect was rather unique and did not depend on one's cultivation realm. However, Suzimo was not worried. Given his endowment, talent, bloodline, physique and essence spirit, he could definitely pass this test. "All right, I have nothing more for you." Suzimo waved it off and took out a few more minor essence condensation pills, tossing them to the grade 3 black immortal. The person rubbed his palms and wanted to take it, but he was still a little afraid. Although it was only a few minor essence condensation pills, they were rare resources for him. Just as he was hesitating, Su Zimo had already turned to leave after drinking his strong wine. The person picked up the minor essence condensation pills hurriedly and was delighted. Su Zimo found a random spot and laid down nonchalantly without caring about the dust beneath him. Placing the wine jar on his chest, he closed his eyes and waited patiently. In the next few days, more and more cultivators gathered in Astral Sect. By the time the official recruitment of disciples began, there were already 100,000 cultivators gathered outside the sect. This was not a small scale. To outsiders, Su Zimo was mostly drunk and asleep at the side. However, among the 100,000 cultivators, he had already roughly understood the background of some of them through listening. This night, the stars were resplendent and the mountain gate opened. 3 middle-aged men stood above the mountain gate. They wore daoist robes embroidered with stars and had calm expressions. All 3 of them were Heaven Immortals. I'm Cold Light. The Heaven Immortal in the middle looked at the cultivators from all directions and nodded slightly. Everyone, welcome to Astral Sect to take part in this entrance test. I hereby announce the official start of the entrance test. Hold on. Right then, a voice sounded from midair in the distance, interrupting Heaven Immortal Cold Light. Immediately after, 2 figures tore through the air at an extremely fast speed and arrived before him in the blink of an eye. The 2 of them wore black gold feather armors and had cold expressions. Although they were only at the Earth Immortal realm, their auras were not disadvantaged against Heaven Immortal Cold Light. Execution guards! The crowd exclaimed. Many cultivators revealed deep reverence and fear in their eyes. In the Great Jinn Immortal Kingdom, the execution guards represented killing and punishment. Although Cold Light was a Heaven Immortal, he did not dare to disobey the orders of the 2 Earth execution guards. Otherwise, he would be challenging the dignity of the Great Jinn Immortal Kingdom. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. Although he seemed drunk on the surface, he was secretly on guard. Fellow Taoists, may I ask why you're here? Heaven Immortal Cold Light did not dare to delay and hurried forward. One of the execution guards took out a painting from his storage bag and opened it, revealing a painting within. The person in the portrait had green robes, black hair and refined features. It was Su Zimo. The Great Jinn Immortal Kingdom is using all our might to hunt down this person. The execution guard surveyed the many cultivators beneath his feet and said in a deep voice, if you see this person, capture him immediately without any mistake. Anyone with any clues can report it and be rewarded generously. Chapter 2045 5 Major Family Clans. Chapter 2045 5 Major Family Clans. Heaven Immortal Cold Light cupped his fists gently. Fellow Taoists, don't worry. Astral Sect has already heard about this. After today, we'll make a few copies of this painting and send them down separately. If we discover anything, Astral Sect will definitely suppress this person with all our might. Yes. An Earth execution guard nodded slightly and surveyed his surroundings. He swept his gaze across the crowd in front of the sect sharply. Su Zimo's current appearance was very different from the painting. He was covered in mud and his face was red, as though he had already fallen asleep. The gaze of the Earth execution guard swept past him without stopping at all. Have any of you seen this person? The Earth execution guard on the left shook the painting in his hands and asked in a deep voice. Exalted Immortal, we've waited here for 2 days along the way but haven't seen this person. A young man in white robes stood out. His black hair draped over his shoulders and he had sharp brows and phoenix eyes. He was elegant as he cupped his fists towards the 2 Earth execution guards and said with a smile. Su Zimo opened his intoxicated eyes and glanced at that person. Earlier on, he heard people discussing that this young man was from one of the 5 major family clans of Solar Lunar County, the Lin clan. His name was Lin Ming and he was a grade 7 Earth Immortal. This time round, the Lin clan brought more than 100 clansmen over with different cultivation realms. There were Black Immortals and Earth Immortals. However, among the 100-odd clansmen, Lin Ming had the highest cultivation realm. From the positions of the clansmen, it could be determined that Lin Ming had a high status among the Lin clansmen. Lin Ming stood out this time round in a pandering manner to the Earth execution guard. However, The two Earth execution guards in midair did not appreciate it at all. They merely glanced at Lin Ming indifferently before retracting their gazes. Although the Lin clan was quite powerful in Solar Lunar County, they were far inferior compared to the execution guards. The execution guards were backed by the royal family of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. On the other side, another young man stood out from the crowd. He held a folding fan and wore purple robes. He cupped his fists. Exalted immortals, don't worry. If we discover his tracks, the Xie clan will be the first to stand out. The Xie clan was second of the 5 major family clans of Solar Lunar County. The person who spoke was Xie Tianfeng, also a grade 7 Earth immortal. When that person stood out, he even glanced at Lin Ming, as if he wanted to fight this person. Report any news immediately. An Earth execution guard was expressionless as he threw the painting in his hands to Heaven Immortal Cold Light. After saying that, he turned to leave with the other person. Su Zimo heaved out a sigh of relief. If the two Earth execution guards were not afraid of trouble and checked the 100,000 cultivators outside the sect, he would not be able to hide anymore. On the other side, not long after the two execution guards left Astral Sect, one of them suddenly asked, "Brother Chen, why didn't we check on the 100,000 cultivators outside Astral Sect earlier on? Su Zimo is definitely not among them." Execution Guard Chen replied. "Why do you say that?" The other person was surprised and said, "The commander personally said that Su Zimo knows the myriad transformations technique and can change his appearance into another person." Execution Guard Chen asked instead, "Let me ask you, how long can a grade 9 Heaven Immortal sustain the release of myriad transformations?" "That depends on the strength of their essence spirit. Even if their essence spirit is condensed, they won't be able to sustain it for long. Myriad transformations is a supreme divine power after all. Sustaining it will consume too much of the essence spirit." The person replied. Execution Guard Chen said, "Doesn't that settle it? Su Zimo is only a grade 1 Earth immortal. Even if he knows myriad transformations, how long can he sustain it? There are 100,000 cultivators outside Astral Sect with so many pairs of eyes. If he couldn't hold on, he would have been exposed a long time ago." The other person was enlightened and praised, "Brother Chen, you're wise." Execution Guard Chen replied, "These are experiences. You've just joined the execution guards, take your time to learn. If we have to check everyone we meet from head to toe, won't we die of exhaustion?" Astral Sect. After the two execution guards left, Heaven Immortal Cold Light instructed the Astral Sect disciples to send the painting in his hands down and send someone to copy it as soon as possible. On the other side, he had already begun hosting the entrance trial. Similar to what the Grade 3 Black Immortal said earlier on, the entrance trial of Astral Sect was rather simple and did not have any cultivation realm requirements for cultivators. Everyone stood on the stargazing platform. As long as starlight appeared on their bodies within 10 breaths, they would pass the trial. There were 100,000 cultivators outside the sect. However, the stargazing platform was made from a meteor and was extremely spacious. It could accommodate more than 100 people at the same time with ease. According to normal speed, more than 30,000 people could be tested in an hour. Before daybreak, the trial for the 100,000 people could end. Su Zimo was in no hurry to advance. Instead, he stood in the crowd and paid attention to the movements on the stargazing platform. Not many of the 100 people who ascended the stargazing platform at the same time could trigger starlight. At times, there were only 1 or 2 people. At times, even among the 100 people, no starlight could appear. Before long, a group of cultivators in similar attire headed towards the stargazing platform. On their waists were the word Wang. It was one of the 5 major family clans, the Wang clan. The leader of the Wang clansmen was Wang Yu. Although he looked ordinary, he had a calm expression, short hair without any beard and a burning gaze. He looked extremely capable and was a grade 6 Earth immortal. Behind Wang Yu were all clansmen of the Wang clan and most of them were black immortals. More than 100 Wang clansmen stood on the stargazing platform and looked up at the starry skies at the same time. A single breath later, faint starlight shone from Wang Yu's body. As time passed by, The starlight on Wang Yu's body intensified and even formed a thick beam of light that extended from his head into the firmaments. Heaven Immortal Cold Light nodded slightly and said, "It's already not bad for the starlight to leave the body at a height of 10 feet. On the third breath, the starlight beam above Wang Yu's head rose once more to a height of 20 feet. That scene caused a series of exclamations. I heard that the brighter the starlight, the better one's endowment and talent. Someone who can condense a beam of light is definitely someone with extraordinary talent. What does the triggering of starlight actually have to do with anything?" A failed cultivator asked in frustration. "I heard that it might be related to the bloodline. No matter what, once you're on the stargazing platform, you can activate all your essence spirits and bloodlines without holding back." As everyone discussed, 10 breaths passed. The starlight above Wang Yu's head had reached a height of 40 feet. Among the 50,000 people who had passed the trial, Wang Yu was the first to condense a beam of light that was 40 feet tall. Not bad, 40 feet. He's quite a rare genius. Beside Heaven Immortal Cold Light, a yellow-robed Daoist nodded slightly with a smile. On the other side, an old man lamented, "I heard that when Astral Sect was just established, all the paragons and monster incarnates of the heavenly world were gathered here. In fact, some of them could even condense starlight beams that were 80 to 90 feet tall. Unfortunately, those have already become legends." Chapter 2046, Shangguan Qian. Chapter 2046, Shangguan Qian. After 10 breaths, more than half of the Wang clan cultivators released starlight from their bodies and stayed in Astral Sect. When Xie Tianfeng saw that, he could not help but shout, "Let me do it." With that said, Xie Tianfeng led many clansmen of the Xie clan onto the stargazing platform. From the looks of it, there should be much internal and external strife within the 5 major family clans from day to day. There would definitely be another competition during their encounter in Astral Sect. Indeed, starlight was the first to appear in Xie Tianfeng's body. On his 4th breath, the starlight left his body and gradually formed a beam of light around him that rose slowly into the firmaments. By the looks of it, Xie Tianfeng's starlight beam seems to be smaller than Wang Yu's. I wonder how many feet it can reach. I heard that the Wang clan's ancestors once obtained a body-tempering divine technique. In terms of physique and bloodline, Xie Tianfeng is probably slightly inferior. After listening for so long, Su Zimo had more or less understood. If one's bloodline was strong, not only would the starlight beam released be shockingly tall and wide, it would also be blinding. For example, the radius of the star beam condensed by Wang Yu earlier on was already half a person. However, Xie Tianfeng's starlight beam merely just enveloped him. In the blink of an eye, 10 breaths passed. Xie Tianfeng's starlight beam was only 30 feet tall and was clearly lower than Wang Yu. Fu. Lin Ming smiled gently and said, "Brother Xie, your beam of light doesn't seem to be as high as Brother Wang Yu's." Xie Tianfeng's expression was terrible as he harumphed coldly. He glanced at Lin Ming, Wang Yu, and the others who were not far away. "Today is just an entrance trial. It's nothing much. Wait and see after we enter the sect." With that said, Xie Tianfeng led many clansmen of the Xie clan off the stargazing platform. More than half of the Xie clansmen triggered starlight and joined Astral Sect. Before long, Lin Ming led his clansmen onto the stargazing platform. As expected, Lin Ming had also activated his starlight beam. Although his starlight beam was more than 30 feet tall, it could not reach a height of 40 feet. Up till now, Wang Yu was still the highest. "Junior sister Shangguan, senior brother Zhuo, your turn is up." Lin Ming cupped his fists towards the other 2 factions. When his gaze landed on junior sister Shangguan, it turned fervent. However, he hid it quickly. The Zhuo and Shangguan family clans were the other 2 of the 5 major family clans of Solar Luna County. The leader of the Zhuo clan wore a plain long robe. He was tall and handsome, with defined features and deep eyes. In terms of bearing, he was clearly superior to Lin Ming, Xie Tianfeng, and Wang Yu. Zhuo Zhuxian, a grade 8 Earth Immortal. On the other side, the leader of the Shangguan clan was a young woman, Shangguan Qian, who was also a grade 8 Earth Immortal. The 2 of them stood side by side. From afar, they looked like a match made in heaven. Both Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng looked jealous and envious. Junior sister Shangguan, you first? Zhuo Zhuxian smiled gently and looked at Shangguan Qian, asking softly with a gentle gaze. Senior brothers were, please. Shangguan Qian shook her head gently and declined. That works too. Zhuo Zhuxian smiled faintly. I won't stand on courtesy. With that said, he tidied his clothes and led his clansmen towards the stargazing platform. The moment Zhuo Zhuxian stepped foot on the stargazing platform, specks of starlight appeared in his body right away, looking even brighter than Wang Yu's. Phew! Starlight shone from Zhuo Zhuxian's body and a beam of starlight was formed before long. It could even accommodate 2 people. The starlight beam surged into the skies. 10 feet. 20 feet. It was only after it broke through 40 feet that the speed of the starlight beam gradually slowed down. Everyone watched fixedly with bated breaths. The gazes of astral sects Heaven Immortal Coldlight and the other 2 intensified as well. Could that lad be going to break through a height of 50 feet? It's very difficult. How many years has it been since we've seen a starlight beam that's 50 feet tall? 10 breaths passed in the blink of an eye. Just as everyone thought that Zhuo Zhuxian's star beam was at its limits, Zhuo Zhuxian roared into the skies and his blood qi burst forth with the sound of a tsunami. Right on the heels of that, the starlight beam surrounding him expanded by an inch and broke through to 50 feet. Cries of surprises came from the crowd. All right. Heaven Immortal Coldlight and the other 2 could not help but clap and laugh as well, praising. Me. Xie Tianfeng sneered, what a show-off. Lin Ming's expression was also dark as he glanced at Shangguan Qian who was not far away. Shangguan Qian looked at the 50 feet starlight beam above Zhuo Zhuxian's head and her eyes lit up as she nodded with a smile. Fu. Zhuo Zhuxian led his clansmen down the stargazing platform and returned to Shangguan Qian's side with a smile. Junior sister Shangguan, it's your turn. Don't feel pressured. Yes. Shangguan Qian nodded and led the many Shangguan clansmen behind her towards the stargazing platform. On the other side, when Su Zimo saw that the number of people who were taking the trial was almost full, he no longer waited and headed towards the stargazing platform. If he wanted to hide in astral sect and cultivate in seclusion quietly, he could not be too high profile. If anyone noticed him, it would definitely not be peaceful. As he pondered, he had already arrived at the stargazing platform and leaped up. Where did this drunkard come from? Get lost. Before Su Zimo's figure could stabilize, a figure charged over from 500 meters away and kicked Su Zimo fiercely without holding back. Su Zimo sneered internally. The person who attacked was only a grade 9 black immortal. However, he was fearless because he was from the Shangguan clan. Su Zimo had countless methods to cripple this person against a kick with so many openings. However, he did not want to attract attention and staggered a few times. Although it seemed like a coincidence, he dodged the Shangguan clansman's kick in an extremely mysterious manner. Su Zimo was in a drunken state and continued towards the stargazing platform without realizing it. The Shangguan clansman almost lost control of his momentum after his kick came to nothing and fell from the stargazing platform. By the time he reacted, Su Zimo had already arrived at the center of the stargazing platform. Su Zimo's plan was clear. These were all clansmen of the Shangguan clan and many of them could trigger starlight. If he mixed in, he would not attract attention even if starlight appeared. Furthermore, everyone's attention was definitely focused on Shangguan Qian and no one would pay attention to a drunkard like him. Su Zimo reeked of wine. When he arrived in the crowd, some Shangguan clansmen revealed looks of disgust and avoided him. Some of the Shangguan clansmen could not help but walk towards Su Zimo with unfriendly expressions. They even wanted to attack and throw Su Zimo off the stargazing platform. Chapter 2047, Bedazzling. Chapter 2047, Bedazzling. Bloody hell. Su Zimo widened his intoxicated eyes and looked at the few Shangguan clansmen who were rushing over. He deliberately shouted, "Why? Is the Shangguan family so overbearing? Has the stargazing platform become part of the Shangguan family?" The others naturally watched the show. However, Heaven Immortal Coldlight and the other 2 of Astral Sect frowned slightly. Heaven Immortal Cold Light coughed gently. Although the Shangwon clan was one of the major clans of Solar Lunar County, they could not chase people away from the stargazing platform casually under his watch. The few Shangwon clansmen had ugly expressions and could neither advance nor retreat. That's enough. Right then, a cold voice sounded. Shangwon Qian was walking over and waved casually. You guys can disperse. Prepare for the trial. When the Shangwon clansmen heard that, they glared at Su Zimo before leaving. Shangwon Qian glanced at Su Zimo indifferently and stood not far away from him. There were already more than 100 people on the stargazing platform. Heaven Immortal Cold Light channeled his spirit consciousness and conjured a dharmic art. A spirit light surged from his fingertip and entered the stargazing platform. The trial had begun. The many cultivators on the stargazing platform channeled their blood qi hurriedly and released their spirit consciousnesses. They looked up at the starry skies, wanting to establish a connection with the stars in the firmament and activate the starlight. Su Zimo was the only one trying his best to calm his blood qi and focus like an old monk in meditation, afraid that he would cause too much of a stir. Since he wanted to enter astral sect and lay dormant, he could not be too high profile. If the stargazing platform was truly related to his bloodline, the moment he activated his Green Lotus bloodline, it would definitely cause a violent reaction from the stargazing platform. If he were to condense a starlight beam that was 70 or 80 feet tall at that time, he would become everyone's focus. Therefore, even when the Shangwon clansmen were channeling their blood qi with all their might, Su Zimo was still nonchalant and seemed like he could fall asleep at any moment with hazy eyes. On the other side, Shangwon Qian did not disappoint either. The range of the starlight beam she condensed was even larger than Zhuo Zhuxuan's. By the fifth breath, it had already broken through a height of 40 feet. If nothing went wrong, she would be able to reach 50 feet or even higher. Not bad, not bad. Heaven Immortal Cold Light smiled and nodded slightly. We have 2 people with 50 feet starlight beams this time round. They're quite the rare geniuses. Unfortunately, they won't belong to astral sect at the end of the day. The old man at the side sighed gently. The 3 of them knew that the reason why geniuses of the 5 major family clans of Solar Lunar County joined astral sect was because of the illusory legend of the past. One day, these geniuses would leave again. At the end of the day, astral sect was only a black-grade sect. If these geniuses wanted greater accomplishments, they would definitely have to attempt to join an earth-grade sect. In the blink of an eye, it was the 8th breath. The starlight beam around Shangwon Qian had already broken through to a height of 50 feet. Although Shangwon Qian could not break through to 60 feet in the remaining 2 breaths, she could still climb a little more. Almost everyone's eyes were fixed on Shangwon Qian. Nobody noticed that Su Zimo, who was not far away from her, was frowning in deep thought. Su Zimo controlled himself well and no starlight appeared in his body. However, seeing that there were only 2 breaths left and the trial was about to end, he was carefully trying to circulate a trace of his bloodline. Right then, a warning flashed in Su Zimo's mind. From the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a gigantic beam of light charging towards him. Shangwon Qian. Although she did not say anything earlier on, she was still extremely disgusted when she saw an ugly burly man reeking of alcohol enter the midst of the Shangwon clansmen. Seeing that the trial was about to end, Shangwon Qian was prepared to teach this drunkard a lesson. Her method was simple as well. In fact, she did not even have to do it personally. In Shangwon Qian's eyes, this drunkard was covered in dust and reeked of alcohol. If she were to hit him, she would be dirtying herself. The starlight beam around Shangwon Qian had a larger radius and could accommodate 2 people. As long as she came to the drunkard's side, the 50 feet tall starlight beam that she condensed through the stargazing platform would be enough to send him flying with ease. Letting this drunkard fall from the stargazing platform could be considered as a lesson for him. Of course, Su Zimo did not know what Shangwon Qian was thinking. However, he naturally did not want to be sent flying when he saw someone charging over. After all, he had yet to pass the trial. Instinctively, Su Zimo stabilized himself and his legs seemed to have taken root, locking onto the stargazing platform. Shangwon Qian's starlight beam collided with Su Zimo's Green Lotus true body but he did not budge. Suzimo's figure gradually fused into the starlight beam. Initially, Suzimo tried his best to control his green lotus bloodline so that it would not leak out at all. But now, the starlight beam enveloped the green lotus true body and starlight filled his body. The starlight inevitably came into contact with the green lotus bloodline as well. Although the starlight beam was condensed by Shangguan Qian, it was also formed because the stargazing platform was connected to the firmaments. Now that the starlight sensed the green lotus bloodline, it was equivalent to the stargazing platform sensing it as well. In that instant, the entire world shook and the weather changed. Immediately after, a bedazzling starlight beam burst forth from Suzimo's body. The radius of the starlight beam was so large that it even enveloped the entire stargazing platform. Initially, there were more than 100 Shangguan clansmen standing on the stargazing platform. Right then, the 100-odd Shangguan clansmen were swept down from the stargazing platform by the starlight beam that burst forth from Suzimo's body. Even Shangguan Qian could not avoid it. She did not know what happened at all and merely felt herself colliding against the drunkard. Thereafter, an incomparably terrifying power seemed to burst forth from the drunkard's body and sent her flying. She wanted to open her eyes and look, but her vision was shrouded by a blinding light. It was white and she could not see anything. The starlight was way too strong. She was not the only one. Many cultivators watching from the front gate were blinded. Everyone either closed their eyes or lowered their heads to avoid it. The crowd exclaimed. Some of the cultivators who were slower to dodge were blinded by the powerful starlight that burst forth from the stargazing platform, and tears streamed down their faces. Not to mention the Black Immortals and Earth Immortals present. Even the 3 Heaven Immortal experts of Astral Sect who were hosting the entrance trial were shocked. They glanced sideways and narrowed their eyes instinctively. Even they were blinded momentarily by that terrifying light. The 3 Heaven Immortal experts hurriedly channeled their spirit consciousnesses and circulated essence chi to protect their eyes. Without hesitation, Heaven Immortal Cold Light condensed a visual technique and secret skill. He tried his best to open his eyes and look towards the stargazing platform. Pest! That single glance caused his expression to change and he nearly fell from midair. Chapter 2048 Shock of Astral Sect. Chapter 2048 Shock of Astral Sect. In Heaven Immortal Cold Light's line of sight, a gigantic starlight beam burst forth from the stargazing platform and soared into the skies. Above the firmaments, millions of stars shone and endless starlight scattered down, connecting to the starlight beam. The starlight beam could no longer be measured using a height of 10 feet. The beam of light seemed to have already connected to heaven and earth and the stars. How is this possible? What exactly happened? Heaven Immortal Cold Light shrugged his head and tried his best to blink. In fact, he even thought that everything before him was his imagination. On the stargazing platform. As the progenitor of this violent reaction, Suzimo was shocked as well. He tried his best to control himself and was careful, thinking that he could keep a low profile and not attract attention. However, he had not expected that by some freak coincidence, the Green Lotus bloodline would trigger such a violent reaction from the stargazing platform. Actually, the reason why the stargazing platform had such a strong reaction was not only because of the Green Lotus bloodline, but also because of the 2 divine stones in Suzimo's eyes, illumination and nether glow. After the starlight beam was released, Suzimo knew that the commotion this time round was way too great. He was anxious as well. If the starlight beam did not disappear, it would definitely cause a huge stir. He definitely could not stay in Astral Sect any longer. Right then, a commotion happened in Suzimo's consciousness. The Green Lotus Essence Spirit wielded the Trinity Auspicious Jade and sat on the Creation Lotus platform the entire time. At that moment, the Trinity Auspicious Jade in the hands of the Green Lotus Essence Spirit seemed to have sensed something and trembled slightly. Immediately after, the endless starlight that surrounded him surged into his consciousness through the top of his head as though it had a place to go. The Trinity Auspicious Jade left the palm of the Green Lotus Essence Spirit and arrived in midair above the consciousness, trembling slightly. 3 dull beads were embedded on the auspicious cloud at the front of the Trinity Auspicious Jade. Right in front of the Green Lotus Essence Spirit, The endless starlight surged into one of the 3 beads. The bead began to glow faintly. If one focused their attention, they could vaguely see that there seemed to be some starlight floating in the bead like thin stars. Suzimo was dumbfounded. According to the inheritance memories of the creation Green Lotus, the 3 beads on the Trinity Auspicious Jade's head indeed had a powerful background. They were the infinite beads. The 3 beads were condensed from the essence of the sun, moon, and stars in the chaos and corresponded to heaven, earth and man. They were blessed by the heavens and coexisted with the Tao. The term Trinity in the Trinity Auspicious Jade referred to the 3 infinite beads. Although Suzimo knew the origin of the 3 infinite beads, he had yet to discover how to activate them, let alone how to use them. The sudden change caused a thought to flash through Suzimo's mind. If the 3 infinite beads were condensed from the essence of the sun, moon, and stars, there was a high chance that the bead that absorbed the starlight earlier on was a star bead. Suzimo had a hunch that he might have unintentionally discovered another mysterious aspect of the Trinity Auspicious Jade. But now was not the time to study that treasure. He was on the stargazing platform and had caused such a huge commotion. The most important thing was how he could escape unscathed without attracting much attention. Initially, Suzimo intended to take advantage of the chaos to leave. But now, the starlight around him was completely absorbed by one of the infinite beads on the Trinity Auspicious Jade, and there were no more phenomenons he could attempt to bluff his way through. On the other side, Heaven Immortal Cold Light shrugged his head and tried his best to stay awake. When he opened his eyes again, he was stunned on the spot with his mouth agape in a daze. The resplendent starlight beam from earlier on had already vanished. It was as though everything he saw earlier was just his imagination. Heaven Immortal Cold Light frowned. There was only a drunkard left on the stargazing platform, slumped on the spot. His wine jar was shattered and he was covered in wine. He had a dazed expression, as though he was scared out of his wits. The other 2 Heaven Immortals snapped out of their stupor and asked instinctively, "What's going on? What happened just now?" "I don't know." Heaven Immortal Cold Light shook his head. He did not know how to explain or describe it. Could it be related to this person? Heaven Immortal Cold Light glared at the drunk man on the stargazing platform for a long time. His spirit consciousness scanned him a few times but could not find anything unusual. Chapter 2049 Mo Ling. Chapter 2049 Mo Ling. What happened? The sect master of Astral Sect, Astral Rain, looked at Heaven Immortal Cold Light and the other 2 and asked in a deep voice. Heaven Immortal Cold Light hesitated for a moment and said, "For some reason, a gigantic starlight beam suddenly burst forth from the stargazing platform and swept all the cultivators on the platform down." As he said that, Heaven Immortal Cold Light looked at the drunk man on the stargazing platform. Right now, the drunkard was the only one left on the stargazing platform. Bloody hell. The drunkard seemed to have just snapped out of his stupor as he stomped on the stargazing platform repeatedly with widened eyes, cursing, "What's wrong with this lousy thing? There must be something wrong with this stargazing platform. You scared me." Sect Master Astral Rain and the elders behind him glanced at Suzimo as well but did not notice anything unusual. Furthermore, no one would believe that such a huge commotion earlier on was caused by a Grade 1 Earth Immortal. Heaven Immortal Cold Light continued, "Earlier on, a phenomenon appeared and endless starlight descended from the stars in the skies, gathering and connecting to the starlight beam. However," pausing for a moment, he said, "however, not long after, the starlight beam seemed to have disappeared within a few breaths." Disappeared? Sect Master Astral Rain frowned slightly. In reality, they did not see what happened at the entrance. They only came out of seclusion after sensing a tremendous energy fluctuation and a blinding light. As for the cultivators around the mountain gate, they were blinded by the bedazzling starlight and could not see the exact process. Heaven Immortal Cold Light was the only one who could see the entire process clearly. However, the entire process was too short. Even if he could see it clearly, he was at a loss and could not believe it. Could something have truly happened to the stargazing platform? Even in the records of Astral Sect, there seemed to be no precedence of such a phenomenon. Heaven Immortal Cold Light would definitely not believe that someone's bloodline and physique could trigger such a phenomenon. When astral sect was first established, the paragons and monster incarnates of the heavenly world only condensed 80 or 90 feet starlight beams at most. That starlight beam earlier connected heaven and earth directly. How could a phenomenon as such be created by a human? Sect Master Astral Rain pondered for a moment and said, "Cold Light, continue hosting the trial. I'll watch from here." "All right." Heaven Immortal Cold Light nodded and declared, "Cultivators with starlight in their bodies on the stargazing platform earlier on, come to my side to receive your sect badge." Initially, Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng wanted to cause trouble for Su Zimo. However, they could only give up for the time being when they saw that the sect master of Astral Sect was here. Shangguan Qian and dozens of Shangguan clansmen headed towards Heaven Immortal Cold Light. Su Zimo leaped down from the stargazing platform and staggered towards Heaven Immortal Cold Light as well. The dozens of Shangguan clansmen received their sect badges one after another. In Astral Sect, Black Immortals could only be considered as outer sect disciples with their cultivation realms. They did not have individual cave abodes to cultivate and could only find their own residences in the mountain ranges of Astral Sect. If one was at the Earth Immortal realm, they could open up their own cave abodes on the 7 main peaks of Astral Sect or choose an empty predecessor's cave abode as their own. Su Zimo arrived before Heaven Immortal Cold Light without any fear. He cupped his fists casually and extended his palm crudely, asking for the sect badge. His every move had to match his identity as a drunkard and could not be too different. "You." Heaven Immortal Cold Light frowned and glanced at Su Zimo, saying indifferently, "From my observation, there didn't seem to be any starlight in your body earlier on." "How so?" Su Zimo glared drunkenly and argued, "My starlight only appeared later on." In reality, because he was suppressing his bloodline, there was indeed no starlight during the 8th breath. In the next 2 breaths, a sudden change happened on the stargazing platform and no one could be sure if starlight surged out of Su Zimo's body. Just as Heaven Immortal Cold Light was hesitating, Shangguan Qian at the side suddenly spoke, "Senior, there was indeed starlight in that person's body at the back. I was the closest to him so I could sense it." Heaven Immortal Cold Light's expression softened. Shangguan Qian did not know this drunkard at all. Given her status and cultivation, there was no way she would lie about this. Furthermore, an additional person for the entrance trial of Astral Sect made no difference. Without hesitation, Heaven Immortal Cold Light took out a sect badge and asked, "Name?" "Mo Ling." Naturally, Su Zimo would not reveal his true name. Instead, he mentioned the name he used when he laid dormant in the capital of Great Ju in Tianhuang mainland. Heaven Immortal Cold Light's spirit consciousness moved. The words Mo Ling had already appeared on the badge in his hands. On the other side of the badge were the words Inner Sect, representing inner sect disciples. Su Zimo received the sect badge and grinned. "It's truly a blessing to join Astral Sect. What a great honor." As he said that, he took out a wine jar from his storage bag and raised his head to drink heartily, ignoring the gazes of others. "Mo Ling." Suddenly, Shangguan Qian's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. "I know that you were the one who caused the commotion on the stargazing platform earlier on." After saying that, Shangguan Qian fixed her gaze on Su Zimo, wanting to see through him. However, Su Zimo did not pause at all, as though he had not heard anything. He only threw away the wine jar after he finished the wine in one gulp. With a flushed face and dazed eyes, he approached Shangguan Qian. "He." Su Zimo laughed and said mysteriously, "You're right. I did it. Impressive, right?" When Shangguan Qian saw the drunken Su Zimo approaching, she could not help but reveal a disgusted expression and retreat a few steps. She looked at Su Zimo, who seemed to be in a daze, and her guess wavered. The reason why she spoke up for Su Zimo previously so that he could join Astral Sect smoothly was because she was suspicious of him. What Shangguan Qian said earlier on was merely a test. If Su Zimo pretended not to hear or revealed anything unusual, it would prove that her guess was right. But now, this person was openly admitting to it, causing Shangguan Qian to hesitate internally. This person is delirious and crazy. He's most likely bragging about himself after getting drunk. At that thought, Shangguan Qian ignored Su Zimo and retreated to the side with the Shangguan clansmen behind her. When Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng saw this, they sneered with unfriendly expressions, seemingly plotting something. "What's wrong with that person?" Zhuo Zhuxian noticed the abnormality on Shangguan Qian's side and asked softly. "Nothing much." Shangguan Qian shook her head gently. "I must have thought too much." Chapter 2050 Alcade. Chapter 2050 Alcade. Before daybreak, the entrance trial for Astral Sect was already over. Although there were 100,000 cultivators, there were less than 10,000 who could join Astral Sect in the end. Even so, that was a massive number. After Sect Master Astral Rain and the Elders saw that the entrance trial was extremely smooth and there were no more strange movements, they left first. "Follow me." Heaven Immortal Cold Light summoned a gigantic immortal boat and carried the thousands of cultivators behind him into the sect. There are many array formations and restrictions in Astral Sect. You have to wear your sect badges at all times. Otherwise, there's a high chance that you'll fall into a formation and attract the attacks of the restrictions. Heaven Immortal Cold Light stood on the deck of the immortal boat and walked through Astral Sect, pointing to the surrounding mountains, terrain and ancient structures as he introduced. Astral Sect was way too huge. Even the lowest level black grade sects of the upper world were more than 10 times larger than any sect in the lower world. The 7 main peaks of Astral Sect alone made one feel insignificant. When they approached, every single main peak was majestic and towered into the clouds, overshadowing the mountain ranges beneath their feet. When they arrived at the foot of the mountains, they were as insignificant as ants compared to the main peaks before them. The mountains that surrounded each main peak were connected and extended for 50 kilometers, almost forming a mountain range. The area formed by the 7 main peaks alone was unimaginably vast. The 7 peaks are Dub, Merak, Fekta, Megrez, Aliath, Miza, and Alcade. The Earth Immortals among you can choose one of the 7 main peaks and either open up or look for a cave abode to reside within. Heaven Immortal Cold Light said. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and sensed. The heaven and earth essence chi surrounding the 7 main peaks was clearly much richer than the other regions. It would definitely be better if they could cultivate on the main peaks. It did not matter which main peak it was. Su Zimo thought for a moment and rode on his flying sword, speeding towards the back of the 7 main peaks. He would have a lot of time to understand some of the rules of the sect in the future. Right now, the most important thing for him was to find a cave abode and cultivate in seclusion. Junior Sister Shangguan, which main peak will you choose? Lin Ming asked with a smile. What he meant was that he wanted to choose the same main peak as Shangguan Qian so that it would be more convenient for them to interact. Shangguan Qian glanced at Su Zimo who was leaving and pondered for a moment. "I haven't settled on one yet. I'll take a look around first." With that said, she left Heaven Immortal Cold Light's immortal boat and headed towards the back of the 7 main peaks, maintaining a distance from Su Zimo. Junior Sister Shangguan, wait for me. Xie Tianfeng shouted and chased hurriedly. Lin Ming followed closely behind. Brother Wang, aren't you going to chase after them? Zhuo Zhuxian looked at the motionless Wang Yu with a calm expression and asked with a smile. No. Senior brothers were, please. Wang Yu shook his head gently and looked at the main peak named Dub on the left of the 7 main peaks. With a leap, he sped forward. Zhuo Zhuxian pondered for a moment before chasing after Shangguan Qian. Naturally, Su Zimo could sense the actions of Shangguan Qian and the others behind him. However, he did not care and arrived at the end of the 7 main peaks. Main Peak Alcade. This will do. Su Zimo arrived at Main Peak Alcade and ascended. Higher on the main peak were the cave abodes of Heaven Immortal experts or elders of the sect. Su Zimo circled around the middle of the peak and caught sight of an empty cave abode. Above the cave abode were the words 1,000 miles. It should be the name of the previous owner of the cave abode. Su Zimo could not be bothered to modify it and entered the cave abode directly. He casually released a few lesser immortal arts and cleaned up the place. Actually, such a thing should be done by some servants. Although Su Zimo was only a grade 1 Earth Immortal, he was already qualified to recruit some servants in the upper world. However, he had too many secrets on him and there was no need for that. After a simple clean-up, Su Zimo began to draw formation patterns at the entrance of the cave abode to set up an array formation. This seclusion might take a long time. He would not allow anyone to disturb him during this period of time. On the other side, Shangguan Qian had already noticed that Su Zimo had entered Main Peak Alcade. She lingered between the 7 main peaks for a while before arriving at Main Peak Alcade to look for a cave abode to stay in. Her suspicions towards Su Zimo were not completely resolved. After all, on the stargazing platform earlier on, she could clearly sense a terrifying power burst forth from Su Zimo's body before the starlight burst forth. Naturally, Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng arrived at Main Peak Alcade as well. They found a cave abode beside Shangguan Qian's cave abode and stayed there. When Zhuo Zhuxian saw that, he smiled gently and entered Main Peak Miza that was beside Main Peak Alcade to stay. Naturally, he had to tidy up after moving into the cave abode. The Shangguan, Lin, and Xie Black Immortal clansmen who joined Astral Sect fulfilled the role of servants and began to set up their cave abodes under the lead of Shangguan Qian and the other two. Pill Refinement Chamber, Cultivation Chamber, Weapon Refinement Chamber, Spirit Beast Chamber, Immortal Herbs Medicinal Field. 3 days had passed since everything was set up. Xie Tianfeng looked at his cave abode in satisfaction. The moment he was free, he thought of Shangguan Qian. At the thought of Shangguan Qian, he could not help but think of that drunkard. Xie Tianfeng harumphed. You've offended junior sister Shangguan time and again. I'll teach you a lesson right now. Xie Tianfeng had everything planned well. He was prepared to teach Su Zimo a lesson and bring him to Shangguan Qian. That way, he would have a logical excuse to visit Shangguan Qian and even check out her cave abode. If I can enter junior sister Shangguan's cave abode. The corners of Xie Tianfeng's mouth curled up as he laughed evilly, letting his imagination run wild. A moment later, he could no longer hold it in. With a burning heart, he rushed out of his cave abode and sprinted towards Su Zimo's cave abode. Before long, he arrived before Su Zimo's cave abode. There was already someone standing there. Lin Ming. Xie Tianfeng was not the only one with those thoughts. What are you standing here for? Xie Tianfeng frowned slightly. He and Lin Ming represented their respective family clans and both wanted to be Dao companions with the most outstanding woman of the Shangguan clan in this generation. That would be equivalent to a union of their 2 major factions and family clans. Therefore, both of them disliked the other. Lin Ming pointed to the cave abode in front of him and said with a fake smile, "That drunkard is inside. Brother Xie, please." Xie Tianfeng was no fool and immediately realized that something was amiss. Narrowing his gaze slightly, he released his spirit consciousness and scanned the surroundings of the cave abode. He could not help but frown and mutter softly, "Array formation?" Lin Ming harumphed coldly as well. That drunkard is not simple. He set up such an array formation in 3 days. Chapter 2051, Fleeting Time. Chapter 2051, Fleeting Time. What should we do? Xie Tianfeng frowned and asked, "Can you dispel this formation?" "I don't know about array formations." Lin Ming shook his head gently before smiling. "Why don't you release your divine powers and secret skills to shatter this array formation, Brother Xie?" Both of them were grade 7 Earth Immortals and their cultivation realms far surpassed Su Zimo. Although they knew nothing about array formations, there was still a high chance that they could dispel it forcefully. Xie Tianfeng thought about it but did not make a move. This was the middle of Main Peak Alcade after all. If he forcefully dispelled the formation, it would definitely cause quite a stir. Attacking the cave abodes of fellow cultivators was a serious matter. If the sect elders were to punish them, it would not be worth it. Xie Tianfeng sneered, "What's my status? Is there a need for me to teach a drunkard a lesson personally? I don't believe that he can continue hiding in his cave abode." "That's true. Let's just send someone to keep watch." Lin Ming nodded as well. The two of them reached a rare agreement and dispersed. In the cave abode, Su Zimo ignored the 2 people outside and had already begun his seclusion cultivation. There were way too many things he wanted to cultivate in this seclusion. Apart from raising his cultivation realm, he also had to study the Void Thunder Manual, Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Divine Elephant Breathing Technique and the Black Tortoise Secret Skill, as well as the mysteries of the Trinity Auspicious Jade. Suzimo pondered for a moment and decided to cultivate the sutra on the third wall of the Hell Suppression Tripod first to perfect the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was a taboo mystic classic. When Suzimo was at the Black Essence realm, it could help him use Essence Spirit Stones to cultivate. If it was more perfect, his cultivation speed would definitely increase. Furthermore, up till now, this taboo mystic classic was his foundation after ascending to the upper world and was also the cultivation technique he mainly cultivated. Suzimo took out the Hell Suppression Tripod and injected his spirit consciousness into the third tripod wall. The Sanskrit words on it gradually lit up. Those Sanskrit words were extremely complicated. It took a lot of mental energy to cultivate. Thankfully, Suzimo had the foundation of the first two sections and his cultivation was much smoother. Time flew. No matter how many cultivators came and went outside the cave abode and what happened in the sect, Suzimo was unmoved and remained in seclusion. Under normal circumstances, if cultivators wanted to obtain Essence Spirit Stones in the sect, they could only complete some missions assigned by the sect and accumulate contribution points in exchange for some cultivation resources. However, Suzimo did not need it at all. In the Spirit Mine previously, Absolute Thunder City and the Emperor's Tomb, he experienced countless battles. Just by picking up the storage bags of others, he had accumulated many Essence Spirit Stones, Essence Condensation Pills and many other resources. In the blink of an eye, 329 years had passed since Suzimo entered seclusion. In the cave abode, there were around 10 Essence Spirit Stones beside Suzimo. His body emitted 10 hair-like golden threads that entered the 10 Essence Spirit Stones and absorbed the Heaven and Earth Essence Chi within. The Heaven and Earth Essence Chi around him intensified and the entire cave abode turned misty like a paradise. Suddenly, Suzimo shuddered and his aura surged. Opening his eyes, he took a deep breath and devoured the surrounding mist. The entire cave abode regained its clarity. Level 2 Earth Essence Realm. If anyone knew that he had advanced another level in the Earth Essence Realm in just more than 300 years, their jaws would definitely drop. The main reason why he could reach that speed was because the third wall of the Hell Suppression Tripod had perfected the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Right now, Suzimo could absorb and refine 10 Essence Spirit Stones at the same time with the help of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. This increased his cultivation speed significantly. Because of his previous experience in Absolute Thunder City, the Emperor's Tomb and the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range, he had benefited immensely and broke through to the Level 2 Earth Essence Realm without encountering any obstacles. Not only that, there was a secret skill of the Buddhist monasteries on the third wall of the Hell Suppression Tripod, at the end of the Sanskrit. It was a dharmic seal. Impermanence seal. All things are impermanent, this is the law of arising and passing away. The Sanskrit of the dharmic seal was extremely profound and difficult to understand. Whenever Suzimo was free, he would comprehend the direction of the dharmic seal. Although he learned something, he did not comprehend it completely. The first two sections of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra cultivated dharmic formulations and only the third section had a secret skill inheritance. There was no doubt that a secret skill of a taboo mystic classic definitely possessed unimaginable might. 10 years ago, Suzimo received a connection from the martial Tao Prime body. Tao Yarrow had ascended. Initially, Tao Yarrow wanted to stay by the side of the martial Tao Prime body. However, the resources of the lower worlds were scarce. Using the martial Tao furnace, the martial Tao Prime body could refine King Yun use Tao fruit bit by bit to raise his cultivation. However, Tao Yarrow did not possess such means. If the two of them ascended at the same time in the future, there was a high chance that they would separate as well. If that was the case, he might as well let Tao Yarrow ascend to the upper world as soon as possible to adapt to the cruel environment there and raise his cultivation as soon as possible. Tao Yarrow was extremely reluctant, but he knew that it was useless for him to stay by the side of the martial Tao Prime body. The cultivation of the martial Dao prime body increased continuously while he stayed in Tianhuang mainland without advancing at all. The gap between the two of them would only increase in the future. Therefore, Dao Yarrow ascended 10 years ago and attracted the 3 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Thankfully, he passed it successfully. However, even the martial Dao prime body could not sense which world he ascended to. With Dao Yarrow's departure, most of Su Zimo's old friends of the past in Tianhuang mainland had already left, apart from some who could not ascend. As time passed by, the era that belonged to the eternal martial emperor gradually came to an end. After Dao Yarrow left, the martial Dao prime body stood in Pingyang town and looked in the direction of the capital of Great Ju in silence with a lost expression. After all these years, Ji Yaoshue's cultivation realm was still at the void reversion realm. The martial Dao prime body had once found many spatial nodes of Tianhuang mainland and left Tianhuang mainland to head to other minor kiliocosms to search for countless mysterious treasures that could not be found in Tianhuang mainland before getting Dao Yarrow to send them over for Ji Yaoshue to consume. However, Ji Yaoshue's lifespan showed no signs of increasing and her cultivation realm was stagnant as well. Void reversion Dao beings had a lifespan of 5,000 years. By now, Ji Yaoshue should only have around 2,000 years left to live. The martial Dao prime body stood in silence for a long time before sighing and returning to his room to cultivate in seclusion. Over the years of cultivation, he had already exhausted many essence spirit stones from the experts of the upper world. Another fate ring had appeared behind him, reaching a total of 6. Through his connection with the Green Lotus true body, the martial Dao prime body could roughly guess that the power of the 6 fate rings meant that his strength was around the earth immortal realm. Time was like an arrow and the days flew. After Su Zimo entered level 2 earth essence realm, he continued to enter seclusion. In the 516th year, Su Zimo broke through once more and entered the level 3 earth essence realm. Su Zimo continued cultivating in seclusion. As the sun and moon rotated, the stars revolved. Another few hundred years passed. This day, more than 1,300 years had passed since Su Zimo joined Astral Sect and entered seclusion. Chapter 2052, Change in Tianhuang Mainland. Chapter 2052, Change in Tianhuang Mainland. Tianhuang Mainland. It had been more than 2,000 years since the eternal martial emperor ascended. As the paragons and monster incarnates of that generation ascended one after another, that era had already come to an end. Time passed and times changed. Although it was only slightly more than 2,000 years, because of the coexistence of the 10,000 races created by the eternal martial emperor and the flourishing of the martial Dao, countless paragons appeared in Tianhuang mainland. However, because of the battle of the 10,000 races and the Bloodfiend catastrophe, too many experts of the 10,000 races died. If Tianhuang mainland wanted to truly recover to its peak, it would have to recuperate for a long time. Nobody in Tianhuang mainland knew that the martial Dao prime body was still in the lower world. At that moment, the martial Dao prime body was searching for treasures in an unknown minor kiliocosm when he suddenly paused and sensed something. The martial Dao prime body turned to look in the direction of Tianhuang mainland and frowned slightly. He had left behind a few spirit consciousnesses in Tianhuang mainland and sensed a commotion. Did something happen? The martial Dao of Tianhuang mainland flourished and the 10,000 races coexisted. Even the primordial races of the past no longer had the same edge. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any threat. However, the martial Dao prime body pondered for a moment and was still worried, deciding to return to Tianhuang mainland. The minor kiliocosm he was in was far away from Tianhuang mainland. It would take some time for him to cross the void if he wanted to return. Tianhuang mainland, extreme west. Suddenly, an incomparably powerful energy fluctuation came from the skies of the Kunlun ruins. Boom, boom, boom. A loud bang reverberated through the clouds and the minor kiliocosm of Tianhuang mainland trembled slightly. The 4 regions and 1 continent shook. The 3 oceans created raging tides. Experts of Penglai Island and Divine Phoenix Island came out of seclusion one after another. Most of the experts of Tianhuang mainland sensed something as well and figures appeared in midair one after another, looking towards the west. A terrifying energy fluctuation burst forth from the skies of the Kunlun ruins. Immediately after, cracks sounded from the world as though something had shattered. The next moment, blinding golden lights burst forth from the direction of the Kunlun ruins and illuminated the world. Pest! The expressions of the experts of Tianhuang mainland changed as they gasped. If they were not wrong, only a single race could release such a golden light and powerful aura. The God race. Furthermore, there was a spatial node in the Kunlun ruins that was connected to God's mainland. In that case, there was a high chance that the terrifying cracking sound earlier on was the seal of this spatial node that was shattered by the God race. The God race had invaded once more. Tianhuang mainland was shaken. The situation is critical. Where's the Luo Emperor? A shout sounded from midair above Tianhuang mainland. Nobody replied. Where are the other emperors of Immortal martial sect? I'm not sure. The emperors and patriarchs of the various races appeared in midair with bewildered expressions. Among them, Leng Ru, Little Fatty, Shi Jian and Ji Chengtian of Ethereal Peak came out of seclusion one after another and arrived in midair. Leng Ru and the other three had yet to reach the Emperor realm, but they had already entered the Ancestor realm. Emperors and patriarchs of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects appeared. Among the primordial races, the Witch race was destroyed in the Battle of the 10,000 Races, and the Bloodvine race was destroyed by Dao Lord Bloodfiend. Right now, there were only 6 primordial races remaining: Gyuro the Dragon, Barbarian, Kuan, Heavenly Eye, Rakshasa, and Golden Crow races. The emperors of the primordial 6 races had already appeared. The emperors of the Dragon race, the Blue Dragon Emperor and Cloud Dragon Emperor, were old friends of the Martial Emperor in the past. The Blue Dragon Emperor was Long Kang, the 5-clawed divine dragon. The Cloud Dragon Emperor was once the mount of the Martial Emperor, Solitary Cloud. Long Ran had already ascended, and the current dragon race was led by Blue Dragon Emperor and Cloud Dragon Emperor. Everyone, come to Heavenly Secrets Palace for a meeting first. Right then, a voice sounded in everyone's ears. The voice came from this generation's storyteller. The storyteller of this generation was once Lin Xuanzhi's disciple and had already entered the Emperor realm. The emperors of the 10,000 races tore through the void and descended in Heavenly Secrets Palace. What happened? The barbarian emperor frowned. The God Empress of the God race has an extremely good relationship with the eternal martial emperor. Why would she suddenly break the seal and barge into Tianhuang mainland? The God Empress that the barbarian emperor was referring to was Nian Qi. Little Fatty shook his head. Given Nian Qi's talent and cultivation, she should have ascended to the upper world a long time ago. The God Empress of God's mainland right now should be someone else. What should we do now? There's no sign of the Luo Emperor. I've just checked on Immortal martial sect and it's almost empty. The storyteller looked at everyone and asked in a deep voice. The Luo Emperor was an expert that had risen in the past 1,000 years. His name was Luo Ao, and he had broken the norm by cultivating both the immortal and martial Daos while possessing a spirit root. His cultivation was unprecedented and he eventually became an emperor. It could be said that after the martial emperor era, the Luo Emperor was the most dazzling monster incarnate. Immortal martial sect established by the Luo Emperor recruited more than half of the martial Dao practitioners in Tianhuang mainland and became the largest sect and faction in Tianhuang mainland. Under normal circumstances, for something like this to happen in Tianhuang mainland, the Luo Emperor should have stood out and led the 10,000 races of Tianhuang mainland to defend against external enemies. He was the only one with the prestige and strength. But now that the Luo Emperor was gone and Immortal martial sect was empty, everyone was at a loss. The Cloud Dragon Emperor had a grim expression. The God race is menacing this time round. They probably won't let things go. In the primordial era, the God race invaded Tianhuang mainland and was hunted down by the divine Hu race in the Kunlun ruins, suffering immense losses. In reality, there was an irreconcilable blood feud between the two continents. It was only because of Nian Qi in the Eternal Martial Emperor era that the relationship between the two continents eased. Now that Nian Qi has ascended and a new emperor is born on God's mainland, there's probably no longer any reservations. Ji Chengtian said in a deep voice. The Blue Dragon Emperor said in a deep voice, "We have no way out and can only fight. There's going to be another unprecedented battle in Tianhuang mainland. At that time, there will be rivers of blood and countless living beings will be destroyed." Sigh. Furthermore, the outcome of this battle is unpredictable, the storyteller sighed. Tianhuang mainland had yet to recover from the battle of the 10,000 races and the Blood Fiend catastrophe. Now, they were about to face such a calamity. It's not impossible. Shi Jian said, for the past 2,000 years, the martial Dao has flourished and almost all the living beings of Tianhuang mainland can cultivate. In terms of our top combat strength, we have the Luo Emperor holding down and presiding over everything. Everyone nodded. At the same time, a bloody battle had already broken out in the Kunlun ruins. The God Race army charged out of the Rainbow Cave in the Kunlun ruins almost endlessly, and every single one of them had a powerful aura. The God Race was innately strong like celestial beings. The men were handsome while the women were pitilessly beautiful. Every single one of the God Race army wore armor and carried long swords on their waists. Wielding spears, they charged continuously at the defense line of the Kunlun ruins. There were tens of thousands of conjoint body mighty figures in the God Race army alone. Among them, there were more than 1,000 patriarchs of the God Race. That number was still increasing. The Kunlun ruins was guarded by the Kunlun race all year round. However, they could not withstand the terrifying attacks of the God Race. The reason why the Kunlun ruins of the primordial era could stop the God Race army was because of the two divine Hus. More than 2,000 years ago, the reason why the God Race could be stopped was because of the martial emperor and night spirit. But now, there was only a group of Kunlun clansmen left guarding the Kunlun ruins. The defense line of the Kunlun ruins could not last long. Chapter 2053 Luo Emperor. Chapter 2053 Luo Emperor. Corpses were strewn all over the God-slaying valley and blood flowed like rivers. The God Race army seemed to have formed a golden spear that charged through the God-slaying valley continuously as the Kunlun race fought to the death. They could not retreat nor did they dare to. Tianhuang mainland was behind the Kunlun ruins. Once the Kunlun ruins was lost, the God Race army would charge in and trample all over Tianhuang mainland. More innocent living beings would die under the gigantic swords and spears of the God Race. Furthermore, all the Kunlun clansmen believed that the reinforcements of the 10,000 races of Tianhuang mainland would definitely rush over to provide support. In the skies, the three emperors of the Kunlun race fought against an emperor of the God Race. The God Race emperor was extremely young and high-spirited. Although he looked to be less than 20 years old, his blood chi was strong and shone with a resplendent golden light. He could fight against the three emperors barehanded and even had an absolute advantage. The Kunlun ancestor realm experts were also fighting against the many ancestor gods on the other end in a tragic battle. Most humans of the same cultivation realm could not defend against the power of the God Race. This was a natural difference in bloodline and physique. During the martial emperor era, most of the paragons and monster incarnates who experienced the battle of the 10,000 races, the Blood Fiend catastrophe and other life and death experiences had already ascended. Although Tianhuang mainland was flourishing and filled with vitality right now, it was only a resting period after the catastrophe and was far inferior to the martial emperor era. However, the true top experts of the God Race had yet to appear. Right now, only a young emperor of the God Race had appeared. Even so, the Kunlun race could no longer defend and was forced to retreat in defeat in the God-slaying valley. Before long, their defense line would collapse. Under the lead of experts, the armies of the major factions of Tianhuang mainland began to gather towards the Kunlun ruins as well with deafening killing sounds. The Great Zhou Empire gathered their army rapidly and rushed to the battlefield of the Kunlun ruins as well. Right then, a figure appeared above the Kunlun ruins. The person wore a black robe and did not look old. However, he was tall and mighty, steady as a mountain. He was like a god that could not be offended and exuded a powerful aura that enveloped the 8 desolates, causing people to prostrate. After the eternal martial emperor, the emperor with the highest reputation and combat strength in Tianhuang mainland, Luo Ao. In order to temper his body and cultivate his dharmic Tao, he once entered the territories of the primordial races alone and fought against them, escaping unscathed. He cultivated both the immortal and martial Taos and became an emperor in less than 1,000 years. He dominated Tianhuang mainland and had never tasted defeat among his peers. He established Immortal martial sect, recruited all the geniuses in the world and invited experts of various races. In just 500 years, it became the strongest among the major sects of Tianhuang mainland. It could be said that the Luo Emperor was the most dazzling legend after the Eternal Martial Emperor era. The Eternal Martial Emperor did not establish a sect and merely took in 2 disciples. Beiming Shui and Carefree were bent on pursuing the Tao and ascended without establishing a sect. As for the Luo Emperor, he would explain the Tao and martial arts every 50 years, attracting many martial Tao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland to follow him. As such, Immortal martial sect grew stronger as well. In fact, there were even people who said that although the Eternal Martial Emperor was the one who created the martial Tao, the Luo Emperor was the one who inherited and expounded it, pushing the martial Tao to greater heights and glorifying it. It's the Luo Emperor. The Luo Emperor is here. The Kunlun clansmen and cultivators of the 10,000 races below shouted excitedly when they saw the figure in midair. The atmosphere in Heavenly Secret's palace was grim. The many emperors and patriarchs who were discussing how to fight sensed something as well and arrived in midair one after another, looking towards the west. A dazzling figure stood in the skies above the Kunlun ruins that no one could ignore. The Luo Emperor has appeared. The storyteller heaved a sigh of relief. Ji Chengtian nodded slightly as well. With the Luo Emperor around, Tianhuang mainland will have a chance of fighting. Immortal martial sect led by the Luo Emperor alone is enough for the god race to suffer. Right then, above the Kunlun ruins, the Luo Emperor waved his sleeves gently and an exquisite palace appeared. It expanded continuously and hovered in midair, emitting an incomparably domineering aura. It's the Immortal martial palace of the Luo Emperor. The Cloud Dragon Emperor said, by the looks of it, the cultivators of Immortal martial sect should be in the Immortal martial palace. However, I wonder what's the meaning of the Luo Emperor's actions. Just as everyone was discussing, cultivators from the Immortal martial palace walked out one after another. However, many of them had ugly expressions, they looked despondent and dazed. Strange. Suddenly, Little Fatty grumbled, there seemed to be much less experts in Immortal martial sect. The others noticed this as well. Some patriarchs and emperors of Immortal martial sect did not appear, it was unknown where they were. Perhaps the Luo Emperor has something else up his sleeves. Shi Jian deduced. Because they were too far away, the experts of Heavenly Secret's palace could not see the expressions of the many cultivators in the Immortal martial palace. Let's pass down the order to gather experts of our sects so that we can move as soon as possible to the Kunlun ruins to fight against the god race. The storyteller said in a deep voice. All right. Many experts tore through the void and returned to their sect's territories to gather their experts before heading towards the Kunlun ruins. At the same time, above the Kunlun ruins, the Luo Emperor looked at the many Immortal martial sect cultivators that walked out and said indifferently, let's attack. Before long, a group of cultivators stood out from the crowd and headed towards the battlefield murderously. The Kunlun clansmen were even more invigorated when they saw that. The Luo Emperor glanced at the remaining Immortal martial sect cultivators and shook his head. Today is a foregone conclusion. There's no way out for you guys. You only have a chance to survive if you listen to my orders. The moment he said that, the Luo Emperor arrived on the Emperor battlefield in the skies in a flash. The 3 Kunlun emperors could no longer withstand the charge of the young god race emperor. Now that the Luo Emperor had arrived, they were finally relieved. Luo Emperor, watch out. This person. A Kunlun emperor had just spoken. Before he could finish, the Luo Emperor punched him on the back. Bang! The Kunlun emperor's eyes widened and he had a stunned expression. His eyes were filled with confusion, doubt, and disbelief. The next moment, the body of the Kunlun emperor exploded into a blood mist. His essence spirit was shattered by the power of the Luo Emperor's punch as well. The other 2 Kunlun emperors were stunned. The Luo Emperor did not stop and slapped the second Kunlun Emperor heavily on the face. The Emperor's head exploded and his essence spirit was destroyed. In less than a breath, 2 Kunlun Emperors died in the hands of the Luo Emperor. Luo Emperor, you! The last Kunlun Emperor had just reacted with a furious expression when he felt a sharp pain in his chest. A gigantic golden fist burst forth from his body and ruptured his heart. The young God Race Emperor sneered and exerted strength in both hands, tearing the Kunlun Emperor's body into 2. The Emperor's essence spirit transformed into a streak of light, wanting to escape. The Luo Emperor's gaze shifted to the essence spirit of the Kunlun Emperor. The person's essence spirit paused immediately. Crack, crack, crack. The next moment, the essence spirit of the Kunlun Emperor shattered and he died. Chapter 2054, True Calamity. Chapter 2054, True Calamity. In the blink of an eye, 3 Kunlun Emperors died in the hands of the Luo Emperor. The blood of emperors dyed the skies of the Kunlun ruins red. The many Kunlun patriarchs who were still fighting the ancestor gods in midair were stunned and could not react for a moment. Right then, the patriarchs of Immortal martial sect descended with many martial Dao practitioners and charged into the crowd, starting a massacre against the Kunlun race. Dharmic arts, divine powers, and dharmic treasures burst forth and created a bloodstorm in the god-slaying valley. The defense line of the Kunlun race guarding the god-slaying valley was already in danger against the charge of the god race army. But now, the many martial Dao experts of Immortal martial sect charged over from behind, causing the Kunlun race to be attacked from both sides and their defense line to collapse instantly. In just 10 breaths, countless Kunlun clansmen died, filled with endless grievances. Even till their deaths, the living beings guarding the borders of Tianhuang mainland did not know why the Luo Emperor and Immortal martial sect attacked them. The god-slaying valley was lost. The Luo Emperor looked at the remaining martial Dao experts beside the Immortal martial palace and narrowed his eyes slightly, saying slowly, "Why? You guys still refuse to attack?" Sigh. An ancestor realm martial Dao practitioner sighed and descended from midair, charging towards the Tianhuang mainland cultivators on the other side of the Kunlun ruins. When they saw that, the other martial Dao practitioners of Immortal martial sect attacked as well. Many sect cultivators who had just arrived in the Kunlun ruins were shocked when they saw that. Half of the martial Dao experts in Tianhuang mainland joined Immortal martial sect and were under the Luo Emperor. But now, these martial Dao experts had changed their allegiances and were charging towards them. "Fellow Daoist Lin, what are you doing? The God Race army is in the God-slaying valley. Why are you attacking people from Tianhuang mainland?" A cultivator was enraged and could not help but question loudly. "Junior Sister Yuan, are you crazy?" Someone shouted. When the martial Dao experts of Immortal martial sect heard that, their eyes revealed guilt. However, they gritted their teeth and continued the massacre. Initially, they were all from Tianhuang mainland. Now that they were in danger from the God Race invasion, they fought among themselves and killed one another. Instantly, the killing sounds of the Kunlun ruins shook the skies and wails could be heard. The emperors of Heavenly Secrets Palace, Sword Sect, Azura Sect, Diamond Monastery, Divine Phoenix Island and the other major sects and factions as well as the 10,000 races had just gathered their experts and were prepared to head to the Kunlun ruins to fight the God Race when they saw that. The emperors were shocked and could not help but feel a chill. How could this be? The storyteller looked at the tragedy in the Kunlun ruins in a daze and could not recover for a moment. There was only a single thought in his mind. However, that speculation was way too terrifying and he could not believe it. The Luo Emperor has already betrayed Tianhuang mainland. The Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes were filled with endless killing intent as he grit his teeth and said hatefully. Lung Ru was still unwilling to believe and murmured, "That can't be, right? Perhaps this Luo Emperor is disguised by someone from the God Race? Impossible." Little Fatty shook his head. Immortal martial sect has 10 emperors. How can they not see through Luo Ao's true body if this is someone from the God Race disguised as him? To think that the Luo Emperor would choose to side with the God Race at this critical juncture. Ji Chengtian clenched his fists in pain. Shi Jian frowned. Even if the Luo Emperor is so vicious, everyone in Immortal martial sect cultivates the martial Tao. Why would they betray Tianhuang mainland along with him? The era of the eternal martial emperor has passed after all. The storyteller shook his head. This generation is the era of the Luo Emperor. In Immortal martial sect, many martial Tao practitioners benefited from the Luo Emperor's martial arts and Tao discussions and are his followers. Time passed and eras changed. The eternal martial emperor ascended and was no longer in Tianhuang mainland, causing his influence to weaken day by day. However, the rise of the new emperor affected the entire Tianhuang mainland. However, no matter how influential the Luo emperor is, there's no way all the martial Tao practitioners of Immortal martial sect will follow him in the betrayal, Leng Ru said. Suddenly, the Cloud Dragon Emperor said, nearly half of the cultivators in Immortal martial sect have vanished. I reckon that those are the cultivators who resisted the Luo emperor and are most likely doomed. Ah! The emperors were shocked. Initially, everyone was energized. However, when they saw the Luo emperor's betrayal, they knew one thing: the true calamity of Tianhuang mainland had arrived. This time round, it was even more terrifying than the Bloodfiend catastrophe and the Ancient War. In the Ancient Era, there was the human emperor. More than 2,000 years ago, there was the martial emperor. But now, the Luo emperor, who was the only thing Tianhuang mainland could rely on, had suddenly changed sides and joined forces with the god race. The Luo emperor was the strongest emperor after the eternal martial emperor era. He comprehended 6 supreme divine powers and was comparable to the ancient human emperor. None of the emperors present were his match. Immortal martial sect was the largest faction in Tianhuang mainland. Even if they lost half of their experts, their strength was far from what the major sects and factions could match. Furthermore, half of the martial Tao experts in the world were under the Luo emperor's lead. How could they fight this battle? Let's go to the Kunlun ruins and fight the god race, the Blue Dragon Emperor said in a deep voice. That's right, I want to ask the Luo emperor why he betrayed Tianhuang mainland after cultivating the martial Tao, Ji Chengtian said in a deep voice. Although everyone's hearts were heavy, they did not give up and led their armies to descend in the Kunlun ruins. At that moment, the Kunlun ruins had already turned into mountains of corpses and rivers of blood with bodies strewn everywhere and a torrential blood qi. The god race army increased. 8 emperors of the god race had already appeared. The Tianhuang mainland army could not defend against it at all and was completely defeated, leaving behind the corpses of millions of living beings. The Kunlun ruins was lost. The Cloud Dragon Emperor, Little Fatty, Storyteller, and the other emperors arrived with experts of their respective sects. When they saw that, they were filled with pain and shock. In midair, the Luo emperor had an indifferent expression, as though the lives of millions of living beings beneath his feet were not worth mentioning. Luo Ao, look what you've done, the Cloud Dragon Emperor hollered with a furious expression. Why? Although Ji Chengtian was only at the ancestor realm, he stood out at that moment and questioned the Luo emperor loudly. Desolate Martial established a Tao and imparted martial arts to all living being. You cultivated the martial emperor's inheritance. Why did you betray Tianhuang mainland and become the butcher's knife of the god race to massacre the living beings of Tianhuang mainland? The martial emperor's inheritance. Suddenly, Luo Ao smiled and looked at the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others. I want to ask everyone who among the emperors of this generation can fight me. The Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others were silent. Among them, they had only comprehended 5 supreme divine powers at most. As for Luo Ao, he had comprehended 6 supreme divine powers and cultivated both the immortal and martial Tao. His combat strength was terrifying and no one was his match. Luo Ao continued, given my combat strength, even in the primordial era, I would have been a top-tier expert. I'm comparable to the human emperor and martial emperor, so what? The storyteller said in a deep voice, the human emperor and martial emperor once made everlasting meritorious deeds for Tianhuang mainland to be admired for all eternity. No matter how strong you are, you're still a sinner of Tianhuang mainland. Ha 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 ha. Luo Ao burst into laughter and looked at the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others coldly. You can't blame me. It's because Tianhuang mainland can't accommodate me. You guys were the ones who forced me to do this. Chapter 2055, On the Verge. Chapter 2055, On the Verge. Bullshit. The Cloud Dragon Emperor sneered. Initially, you were the leader of the emperors of Tianhuang mainland. The major sects and factions were led by your Immortal martial sect, and even Heavenly Secrets Palace was only second. When has Tianhuang mainland not accommodated you? How did we force you? The Cloud Dragon Emperor was not the only one. Even the other emperors and patriarchs were puzzled and did not know why Luo Ao said that. Only the storyteller frowned slightly, as though he recalled something. Fufu, you've forgotten so quickly? Luo Ao sneered at the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others. The storyteller asked slowly, "You're referring to the matter of you wanting to be conferred the Martial Emperor title back then?" Back when Luo Ao was conferred the title of Emperor, he wanted to be conferred the title of the Martial Emperor. However, he was stopped by the storyteller, the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others. Although Luo Ao was the most dazzling paragon and monster incarnate after the Eternal Martial Emperor era, he was far inferior to the Martial Emperor in terms of experience and combat strength. Thereafter, Luo Ao held martial arts and Dao discussions, attracting many martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland to follow him. Immortal martial sect grew stronger by the day. As for Luo Ao, his cultivation of the immortal and martial Daos advanced as well. Before long, he comprehended 6 supreme divine powers. His combat strength was comparable to the human emperor. Luo Ao took the initiative to mention once more that he wanted to be conferred the title of the Martial Emperor. At that moment, no one in Tianhuang mainland was his match in terms of combat strength. However, when the emperors gathered, almost no one agreed to this matter. Even the primordial races that had a blood feud with the Martial Emperor did not agree to this matter, and the emperors still dissuaded Luo Ao from giving up on the title of Martial Emperor. In everyone's hearts, there was only a single Martial Emperor in Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo. Although Luo Ao's later accomplishments were great, it was difficult for him to take on the title of the Martial Emperor. At that time, Luo Ao and the emperors parted on bad terms. Now that the storyteller was bringing up the past, the emperors were slightly stunned. Could it be because of this that Luo Ao actually allowed a predator into Tianhuang mainland to massacre the masses? I can't even get my hands on the title of the Martial Emperor, and yet you claim that I'm the leader. Luo Ao sneered. The Blue Dragon Emperor cursed. What a lunatic. You're going to betray Tianhuang mainland and the human race just because you're not allowed to be the Martial Emperor? I'm not a human to begin with, so how can I betray you? Luo Ao said indifferently, half of the god race's blood flows through my body, however, none of you know about it. The emperors were shocked. This fact of Luo Ao had actually been hidden from everyone. With that, it was easy to understand why Luo Ao could rise in Tianhuang mainland in such a short period of time and become an emperor. I don't have any prejudice towards the human race or the god race. I grew up in Tianhuang mainland, and in the depths of my heart, my feelings for Tianhuang mainland are even deeper. Luo Ao shook his head. However, I'm way too disappointed that you guys stopped me from being conferred the title of the Martial Emperor twice. You guys were the ones who pushed me towards the god race. The calamity of Tianhuang mainland today was all because of you guys. Haha. Little Fatty sneered. What a joke. You broke off ties with Tianhuang mainland and abandoned the masses just because of a title. That proves that our actions back then were not wrong. You're not worthy of the title of the Martial Emperor. Luo Ao glared at Little Fatty and said coldly, whether I'm worthy or not is not decided by you. Half of the martial Dao experts in Tianhuang mainland are under my lead. Once you guys die, I'll be the Martial Emperor. Where are the others from Immortal martial sect? Although the storyteller had already guessed it, he could not help but ask, where's the Nether Emperor, Dragon Martial Emperor, Zhuxia Emperor and the others? Including Luo Ao, there were a total of 10 emperors in Immortal martial sect. But now, there were only 6 left behind Luo Ao. When the 6 emperors of Immortal martial sect heard that, their expressions dimmed and they lowered their heads. Luo Ao smiled and said casually, I gathered all the cultivators of Immortal Martial Sect in the Immortal Martial Palace. The Immortal Martial Palace is my destiny dharmic treasure. Inside, I can kill all living beings within with a single thought. Anyone who resisted me was buried in the Immortal Martial Palace. Many martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland were enraged when they heard that. Luo Ao, you cultivated the inheritance of the martial emperor but abandoned Tianhuang mainland. You forgot your roots and massacred people of the martial Dao wantonly. You're truly inferior to pigs and dogs. A martial Dao patriarch could not help but stand out and curse. Luo Ao's gaze shifted to the martial Dao patriarch. Watch out. The Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others hurriedly reminded, but it was too late. The glabella of the martial Dao patriarch was pierced by Luo Ao's gaze and his essence spirit was destroyed, dying on the spot. Luo Ao's attack came without any warning and the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others could not save him in time. Luo Ao, there are millions of martial Dao practitioners in Tianhuang mainland. Can you kill all of them? Luo Ao, you've forgotten your roots and are inferior to pigs and dogs. You're not even worthy of carrying the martial emperor's shoes. Not only did Luo Ao's killing power fail to intimidate the cultivators of Tianhuang mainland, more and more martial Dao practitioners stood out and shouted. Instantly, the Tianhuang mainland army was worked up and their shouts shook the skies, waiting for the emperors of Tianhuang mainland to give the order. You only have two options. Submit or die. Luo Ao looked at the emperors of Tianhuang mainland and shook his head gently with a disdainful expression. Who among you is a match for me? Furthermore, there's the God Race army behind me. The emperors knew that Tianhuang mainland was most likely doomed for this battle as well. However, how could everyone from Tianhuang mainland submit without a fight? The emperors looked at Immortal Martial Sect behind Luo Ao. If they could convince those cultivators of Immortal Martial Sect to stand on the side of Tianhuang mainland, they might stand a chance. However, the remaining martial Dao practitioners of Immortal Martial Sect were either indebted to Luo Ao or fearful of his methods. Who would dare to stand out? The truly hot-blooded Immortal Martial Sect martial Dao practitioners who did not fear death had already been killed by Luo Ao. Lung Ru looked at the 6 emperors of Immortal Martial Sect behind Luo Ao and the many martial Dao experts of Immortal Martial Sect. How many of you don't have spirit roots and are able to cultivate and obtain your current achievements because the martial emperor established his Dao? Everyone from Immortal Martial Sect was silent. The 6 emperors averted their gazes and did not even dare to meet the gazes of those from Tianhuang mainland. Lung Ru continued, as people of Tianhuang mainland and have cultivated the martial Dao, how can you guys help the Avilders without distinguishing between right and wrong? There was a stir in Immortal Martial Sect but it was not obvious. Although many martial Dao practitioners were shaken, no one dared to stand out against Luo Ao's might. The Peak Emperor of Immortal Martial Sect sighed. I know that you're right, but it's all thanks to the Luo Emperor's guidance that I'm able to obtain my current accomplishments. The Peak Emperor lowered his head and could not continue. His heart was in immense pain. Another Crimson Emperor spoke with a dim expression. It's not that we don't know what's right or wrong, but the Luo Emperor saved my life back then. Luo Ao, what are you waiting for? Right then, the young God Race Emperor led the God Race army and sped over with a torrential aura. At that moment, 8 emperors of the God Race had already arrived in Tianhuang mainland. Luo Ao looked at the people from Tianhuang mainland opposite him with a cold expression. He raised his palm slowly and was prepared to give the order. The battle was on the verge. Chapter 2056, Martial Emperor's Badge. Chapter 2056, Martial Emperor's Badge. All martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland, listen up. Right then, a voice sounded from behind the Tianhuang mainland army. A dignified woman in light yellow robes strode through the void with a green badge in her hands. She walked towards the front of the battlefield with a resolute gaze. The woman's robe was already a little old and its color was even a little pale. However, it could not conceal her noble aura. The Empress of Great Ju? Sister Yaoxue. Everyone from Tianhuang mainland recognized the woman right away. The Empress of Great Ju, Ji Yaoxue. After many years, Ji Yaoxue's cultivation realm did not increase much and she was only at the void reversion realm. However, she did not show any fear against the encirclement of emperors and patriarchs. Sister Yaoxue, what are you doing here? Little Fatty hurried over and said in a deep voice, a huge battle is about to break out here. It's too dangerous. Everyone did not have a deep relationship with Ji Yaoxue. However, Little Fatty and the others knew that Ji Yaoxue had a close relationship with Su Zimo in the past and could not bear to involve her in this matter. I'm here to send this badge. Ji Yaoxue picked up the green badge in her hands and raised it above her head, shouting, the Martial Emperor's badge is here. All the martial Dao practitioners in the world, heed my orders. Everyone could clearly see the words Desolate Martial written on the green badge. The Martial Emperor's badge. In the cultivation world, there had always been rumors that before the Martial Emperor ascended, he left a badge for his eldest disciple, Beiming Shui. That badge was known by later generations as the Martial Emperor's badge. It was said in the cultivation world that after Beiming Shui ascended, the badge disappeared. Nobody expected such an important badge to be in the hands of the Empress of Great Ju. Nobody knew what the Martial Emperor's badge was used for. However, that badge had an extremely important symbolic meaning for the martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland. Seeing the badge was akin to seeing the Martial Emperor arrive personally. The Martial Emperor's badge was connected to the Martial Emperor the same way the Human Emperor's palace was connected to the Human Emperor. Many martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland were invigorated when they saw the badge. The green badge seemed to emit a strange demonic power that made many martial Dao practitioners fearless and could press forward. Why the martial Dao? Ji Yaoxue looked at the many martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland and Immortal martial sect and asked softly. Before everyone could reply, Ji Yaoxue continued, I've never cultivated the martial Dao. However, I heard from the Martial Emperor that the most important thing for the martial Dao is not the dharmic formulation, but the intent and will of the martial Dao. Although Ji Yaoxue was only at the void reversion realm, she wielded the Martial Emperor's badge and all the martial Dao practitioners in the world listened quietly. Many martial Dao practitioners looked at the Martial Emperor's badge with a burning gaze, as though they had returned to the passionate times when they entered the path of cultivation and cultivated the martial Dao. Suddenly, the situation changed. For some unknown reason, Luo Ao felt extremely uneasy. He realized that he had to retrieve the Martial Emperor's badge and not let Ji Yaoxue continue. Die. In a flash, Luo Ao arrived beside Ji Yaoxue and golden blood qi burst forth from his body. In fact, he did not even conceal his god race bloodline as he threw out a punch, wanting to kill Ji Yaoxue on the spot. Luo Ao did not hold back at all in that punch. Ji Yaoxue was only a void reversion Dao being and could not defend against the attack of an emperor at all. The wind produced by Luo Ao's punch alone was enough to blow her to death. Swoosh! Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Ji Yaoxue. This time round, the Cloud Dragon Emperor was long prepared. The moment Luo Ao moved, he had already blocked in front of Ji Yaoxue and released his blood qi at the same time, transforming into his dragon true body. His massive dragon body protected Ji Yaoxue tightly behind him. At the same time, the Cloud Dragon Emperor channeled his essence spirit and released a secret skill, extending his sharp dragon claws as well. Bang! The fist and claw collided. The Cloud Dragon Emperor's face was pale. Before he even took a half step back, the sound of bones cracking could be heard from his body and the dragon scales on his body began to fall off continuously. His dragon body exploded and blood spurted out. Poof! The Cloud Dragon Emperor's expression darkened as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His life force was almost dispersed by Luo Ao's punch. The difference in strength between the two of them was way too great. If the Cloud Dragon Emperor had retreated and thought of a way to neutralize Luo Ao's punch, he might not have suffered such serious injuries. However, Ji Yaoxue was behind him. He could not retreat at all. Luo Ao was enraged and was about to attack when Little Fatty, the storyteller and the other emperors of Tianhuang mainland attacked one after another, releasing a series of supreme divine powers that descended in an overwhelming manner. Although Luo Ao had comprehended 6 supreme divine powers, He did not dare to take on so many Dao divine powers and secret skills head-on. He could only retreat and avoid the attack temporarily. The 6 emperors of Immortal martial sect who were supposed to help him did not move. They were not the only ones. Be it the martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland or Immortal martial sect, everyone was asking themselves internally, why the martial Dao? What was the martial Dao? Looking at the severely injured Cloud Dragon Emperor, Ji Yaoxue shouted with tears in her eyes, the martial Dao is courage and fearlessness. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. Ji Yaoxue wielded the martial emperor's badge and continued, the martial Dao advances courageously and is true to one's heart. The martial Dao is filled with pride and allows one to exact revenge and repay gratitude as they please. The martial Dao is unyielding, resisting and possessing the boldness to go against millions of people. With every word that Ji Yaoxue said, the blood of the martial Dao practitioners present stirred. When the final word was said, many martial Dao practitioners regained their initial fighting spirits and their blood boiled as they could not help but roar into the skies. The billions of martial Dao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland released unshakable wills that eventually gathered into a ball and swept in all directions like raging tide. When she saw that, Ji Yaoxue wielded the martial emperor's badge and shouted, Luo Ao betrayed Tianhuang mainland and forgot his roots. Today, I hold this badge and invite all the martial Dao practitioners in the world to make him our common enemy. Invite all the martial Dao practitioners in the world to make him our common enemy. Those words reverberated through the world in a deafening manner. At that moment, Luo Ao felt an unprecedented pressure. At the same time, endless hatred and indignance surged in his heart. He had painstakingly established Immortal martial sect for many years, but he could not compare to the badge of a person who had ascended for more than 2,000 years. Luo Ao was enraged and emitted a sharp aura. His might enveloped the 8 desolates as he asked coldly, who dares to kill me? Kill. Before his sentence was finished, a shout sounded from behind Luo Ao. The emperor of Immortal martial sect who had initially submitted to him was the first to attack. Luo Ao was alarmed and turned around suddenly, repelling the intruder with a punch. His gaze was sharp as he said slowly, Crimson Emperor, how dare you try and kill me? Luo Ao, it's true that you saved my life. The Crimson Emperor said in a deep voice, however, you shouldn't have invited a predator and abandoned Tianhuang mainland. After today, no matter the outcome, I'll commit suicide and return you my life. The Crimson Emperor's words were filled with an indomitable determination. The Peak Emperor stood out as well and looked at the Cloud Dragon Emperor, Storyteller, and the other emperors of Tianhuang mainland. The 6 of us will do our best to hold back Luo Ao. As for the God race, we can only leave them to you guys. All right. The emperors of Tianhuang mainland were invigorated. Ji Yaoxue appeared on the battlefield with the martial emperor's badge and caused all the martial Dao practitioners of Immortal martial sect to return to the side of Tianhuang mainland. Chapter 2057 Arrival of the God Emperor. Chapter 2057 Arrival of the God Emperor. At that moment, the God race army had already charged over. Their iron hooves were like thunder and carcasses flew with a torrential blood chi. Kill. With the Blue Dragon Emperor's order, the cultivators of Tianhuang mainland and the God race army collided violently like 2 gigantic waves and blood splattered everywhere. The moment they collided, countless living beings died on the spot. However, the cultivators of Tianhuang mainland were fearless and pressed forward. No matter their cultivation or combat strength, they possessed an unshakable will at that moment. Fresh blood, limbs, dharmic treasures, divine powers, corpses, heads. Everywhere one could see, there was blood and it was extremely tragic. On the side of Tianhuang mainland, although they had the numbers advantage for the emperors with more than 20 from various factions, they could not gain any advantage against the 8 emperors of the God race. The 6 emperors of Immortal martial sect surrounded Luo Ao and were in danger as well. Luo Ao cultivated both the Immortal and martial Dao and comprehended 6 supreme divine powers. His combat strength was heaven-defying. Of the 6 emperors of Immortal martial sect, only the Crimson Emperor and the Peak Emperor had comprehended 5 supreme divine powers. Of the other 4, 1 had comprehended 4 supreme divine powers, 2 had comprehended 3 and 1 had only comprehended 2. The difference in combat strength between Luo Ao and the group of 4 was immense, and only the Crimson Emperor and the Peak Emperor could barely fight Luo Ao. The remaining 4 emperors could not withstand Luo Ao's attack at all. Poof! In less than 8 breaths, the emperor who comprehended 2 supreme divine powers was killed on the spot by Luo Ao. After a while, another emperor of Immortal martial sect died. As for Luo Ao, he strolled leisurely among the remaining 4 emperors of Immortal martial sect with ease. Ah! A god's kingdom condensed in Luo Ao's palm and captured an emperor within. Golden light streaked through the god's kingdom, and in the blink of an eye, an emperor was refined and died. The god's kingdom was a supreme divine power of the god race. The difference was too great. Right now, Luo Ao possessed half of the bloodline of the god race and cultivated both the immortal and martial Tao. He had comprehended 6 supreme divine powers, and his combat strength was comparable to a supreme expert like the human emperor. Even with the encirclement of 6 emperors, he killed 3 of them in succession. Crimson Emperor, Peak Emperor, I'll give the 2 of you another chance. As Luo Ao fought against the 3 of them, he said, if you submit to me now, I can let bygones be bygones. Luo Ao lacked some helpers if he wanted to rule over Tianhuang mainland in the future. The Crimson Emperor and the Peak Emperor had comprehended 5 supreme divine powers. Luo Ao could not bear to kill them and wanted to have the 2 of them under his wings. Luo Ao, the 2 of us have already made up our minds today. You don't have to persuade us anymore. The Crimson Emperor said, you cultivated the martial Tao. We hope that you can repent and defend against the god race with the masses of Tianhuang mainland. Fu. As Luo Ao sneered, he waved his palm and killed another person. Of the 6 emperors of Immortal martial sect, only the Crimson Emperor and Peak Emperor were left. Let me ask you again, submit or die. Luo Ao's expression darkened as he said slowly, don't blame me for not giving you guys a chance. Right then, a voice sounded from the battlefield of the Kunlun ruins, as though it came from the clouds and was high and mighty, looking down on all living beings. To think that you guys haven't taken down Tianhuang mainland yet. You guys are way too slow. A golden figure appeared above the Kunlun ruins and shone with a bedazzling golden light like a blazing sun. The emperors merely glanced at it and felt their eyes sting. The emperors could not even see the person's figure and appearance clearly. However, after that figure appeared in the Kunlun ruins, the entire Tianhuang mainland trembled and swayed, letting out tragic cries. It was as though even Tianhuang mainland could not withstand this person's aura. Oh, to think that you guys would be able to condense such a strong will. Interesting. The golden figure chuckled. God said, let there be light. Right then, at the end of the Kunlun ruins, the golden figure spoke slowly. Instantly, a golden spot of light descended from the battlefield of the emperors and suddenly blossomed. The golden light emitted a terrifying aura and released beams that were sharp like golden spears. They tore through the divine powers and secret skills of the emperors of Tianhuang mainland with ease and pierced their bodies. Poof, poof, poof. The sound of sharp weapons tearing through flesh could be heard from the battlefield. It was a shocking sight with the blood of emperors. The emperors of Tianhuang mainland were enveloped by the golden light, and those who were weak died on the spot. Even emperors such as the Blue Dragon Emperor, Storyteller, and the others who had comprehended 4 or 5 supreme divine powers were pierced by the golden light. Blood gushed out of their wounds and they fell from midair with weak auras and dispirited expressions. The golden light contained a strange power that their bloodlines and divine powers could not purge. The emperors of Tianhuang mainland were either dead or injured. All of them were crippled by a single move from the golden figure. The Crimson Emperor and the Peak Emperor were already lying in a pool of blood. The 2 of them were unlucky and their heads were pierced by the golden light. Their essence spirits were shattered and they could no longer survive. The golden figure stepped through the void and walked over slowly. Although it seemed slow, it arrived before them in the blink of an eye. Poof! The golden figure took a step forward and all the Tianhuang mainland cultivators within its range died, turning into blood mist. Although that step did not seem like a large area, It was difficult for any cultivator to escape. With a single step, hundreds of thousands of Tianhuang mainland living beings turned into dust beneath the golden figure. That single step was the difference between life and death. Be it Dharma characteristic Tao lords or mighty figure patriarchs, none of them were spared by the footsteps of the golden figure. Poof! The golden figure took a second step. Hundreds of thousands more living beings of Tianhuang mainland fell. Poof! A third step. The living beings of Tianhuang mainland fell one after another like weeds harvested by a scythe, and no one could stand up. A large blooded area appeared between the Tianhuang mainland army and the Godrace army. It was empty without a single figure standing. There was nobody else apart from that bedazzling and unstoppable figure in midair. The will of the martial Tao practitioners of Tianhuang mainland was shattered by the golden figure within 3 steps as well. The blood of everyone from Tianhuang mainland gradually turned cold. How should they defend against such an expert with such strength? Everyone was filled with despair and fear. Cough. The Cloud Dragon Emperor coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood and murmured, "Everyone, come back. There's no need to continue fighting. This was a complete massacre. If this continued, all the living beings of Tianhuang mainland would die here." Greetings, God Emperor. When the God race beings saw the golden figure, they knelt on one knee and bowed, shouting in unison. The God Emperor descended slowly, and the golden light on his body gradually retracted, revealing an incomparably handsome face. His dark blue eyes were like a pair of sapphires in the depths of the ocean, deep and mysterious. The God Emperor wore a golden crown on his head with a circle of gems on it. It shone with a mysterious glow, making the God Emperor look bedazzling and incomparably noble. Greetings, God Emperor. Luo Ao knelt on one knee and bowed. The God Emperor nodded slightly and chuckled. Rise. Immortal Sacred King. Chapter 2058, You Wanted to See Me? Chapter 2058, You Wanted to See Me? There was still no fear in Ji Yaoshua's eyes when she faced the God Emperor. She said in a deep voice, "Back then, God Empress Nian Qi of the God race knelt down in the God-slaying valley and made a vow that she would never step foot into Tianhuang mainland in her lifetime to complete her salvation for herself and the God race. Since you're the new emperor, why did you disregard the oath made by the God Empress Nian Qi and invade Tianhuang mainland again?" At that point, everyone in Tianhuang mainland broke out in cold sweat for Ji Yaoshua. At that moment, everyone was shocked by the power of the God Emperor. Let alone ordinary cultivators, even the emperors of Tianhuang mainland did not dare to meet the God Emperor's gaze, let alone question him loudly. It was a reverence that came from the depths of their souls and bloodlines. Nobody could control it at all. Nobody knew how a void reversion like Ji Yaoshua could have such courage. This was an existence countless times more terrifying than Luo Ao. If the God Emperor were to attack, no one would be able to defend against him. Perhaps because he could not be bothered to attack a void reversion Tao being, the God Emperor merely smiled indifferently. The oath Nian Qi made has nothing to do with me. No living being or race is worthy of having the God race kneel, let alone 2 corpses. It's the eternal regret of the God race that God's mainland failed to take down Tianhuang mainland twice. The reason why I'm here today is to make up for that regret. The God Emperor looked at Ji Yaoshua with his dark blue eyes and said slowly, "Nian Qi is a weakling and only the weak will retreat. As for me, I like to crush my way through and kill anyone who resists without mercy." Although the God Emperor was smiling as he spoke, everyone could sense the shuddering killing intent behind his smile. The battlefield was silent. Nobody dared to act rashly or speak casually. Luo Ao looked at everyone from Tianhuang mainland with a mocking expression and shook his head. "I've already said that there's no need for you guys to resist. No one or world can defend against the power controlled by the God Emperor right now. Even Monk Daming of the Martial Emperor era, Tao Lord Bloodfiend and the Martial Emperor combined won't be a match for the God Emperor, let alone the Martial Emperor alone." When he heard that, Little Fatty suddenly laughed. "Therefore, the reason why you chose to submit to God's mainland is not because of the title of the Martial Emperor, but because you know that you're not a match for the God Emperor." Little Fatty sneered with a mocking expression. "You chose to submit to the God race because you're afraid. That's nothing. The God Emperor smiled gently and patted Luo Ao on the shoulder. It's a wise move to choose to submit to an expert. If you resist stubbornly, you'll only be a corpse beneath my feet. Luo Ao lowered his head slightly to express his obedience. That's why I said that you'll never be worthy of the title of the martial emperor. Ji Yaoshua looked at Luo Ao coldly and suddenly said, "What are you talking about?" Luo Ao's expression darkened. Ji Yaoshua sneered, "No matter how strong an opponent is, the martial emperor will stand out and protect Tianhuang mainland. However, you chose to submit and live an ignoble existence. Not only are you not worthy of the title of martial emperor, you're not even worthy of cultivating the martial Dao." Luo Ao's expression was extremely dark. Ji Yaoshua's words had struck a sore spot. Up till this point of his cultivation, his greatest goal was to surpass the martial emperor. However, he had never obtained the recognition of the emperors of Tianhuang mainland. Martial emperor? Luo Ao clenched his fists and grit his teeth. The martial emperor of the past had long ascended. In this generation, I'm the martial emperor. In the future, I will even earn the title of eternal. Who will admit to it? Ji Yaoshua asked with a mocking expression. Admit to it? Luo Ao burst into laughter. From this day forth, I'll rule over the 10,000 races and become the only master of Tianhuang mainland. I'll destroy all the ancient books that contain Desolate Martial. The name Desolate Martial will be a taboo in Tianhuang mainland. I'll kill anyone who dares to mention it. Desolate Martial has long ascended. As time passes, fewer people will know about him. If 10,000 years won't do, I'll use 20,000 or even 50,000 years. I have enough patience. One day, every living being in Tianhuang mainland will think that I was the one who created the martial Dao and that I'm the eternal martial emperor. Luo Ao had a deranged expression and was already a little fiendish. Dream on. Ji Yaoshua said coldly. Luo Ao glared at the martial emperor's badge in Ji Yaoshua's hands and said coldly, "Do you think that you can replace Desolate Martial with a lousy badge? I'll cripple that badge today." The moment he said that, Luo Ao reached out and grabbed the martial emperor's badge through the void. Caught off guard, Ji Yaoshua's palm was even sliced by the martial emperor's badge and fresh blood flowed. Luo Ao gripped the martial emperor's badge and glared at the words Desolate Martial. He was increasingly enraged and exerted strength in his palm, squeezing viciously. Luo Ao's palm hurt but nothing happened. Immediately after, a change happened. Suddenly, a terrifying aura burst forth from the martial emperor's badge and a figure condensed in midair. He had black hair, green robes and refined features, identical to Desolate Martial. Eternal Martial Emperor, everyone exclaimed in high spirits. Desolate Martial's gaze was cold as he attacked and punched Luo Ao. That punch was filled with the aura of death and a tremendous might descended. Although Luo Ao had comprehended 6 supreme divine powers, at that moment, he could not move or defend at all. Whoosh! Suddenly, golden light appeared at the side and the God Emperor suddenly appeared before Luo Ao in a flash. His blood chi surged and he punched the martial emperor in midair with a grim expression. Boom! The fists collided with a loud bang. Heaven and earth rumbled. The martial emperor's figure in midair gradually dissipated. As for the God Emperor, streaks of blood appeared on his face as well. His skin exploded and he was almost ruptured by a single punch. The crown on his head shone with a milky white glow. The wounds on the God Emperor healed in the blink of an eye. It's just a phantom formed by a will. The God Emperor said indifferently and threw the martial emperor's badge on the ground casually. Luo Ao felt a sense of trepidation. The punch earlier on almost shattered the God Emperor's body. If it landed on him, he would definitely die. Bitch, how dare you try to destroy me? Luo Ao snapped out of his stupor and was enraged. He glared at Ji Yaoshua menacingly and walked towards her slowly with a murderous aura. Everyone from Tianhuang mainland was shocked. Everyone could tell that Luo Ao was filled with killing intent. At that moment, the emperors of Tianhuang mainland were severely injured by the God Emperor and no one could defend against Luo Ao's attack. Ji Yaoshua merely sneered fearlessly. She seemed to be mocking the fact that Luo Ao was almost killed by a single will phantom of the martial emperor. Luo Ao was even more furious when he saw Ji Yaoshua's smile. "What are you laughing at?" Luo Ao's expression was cold as he suddenly let out a deep laughter. "Fu fu fu fu. I know who you are. You were once Desolate Marshal's confidant. You're just a pitiful person. So what if you can't forget him? It's just your wishful thinking. Desolate Marshal has long ascended and forgotten about you completely. Today is the day you die. Who can save you? Where is Desolate Marshal?" As he spoke, Luo Ao had already arrived before Ji Yaoshua and was prepared to attack. "You wanted to see me?" Right then, a voice sounded from behind Ji Yaoshua. It was neither loud nor soft and was calm and indifferent. Chapter 2059 Return of the Martial Emperor. Chapter 2059 Return of the Martial Emperor. That voice. Ji Yaoshua shuddered and her heart seemed to have stopped beating. Was it him? How was that possible? Ji Yaoshua could no longer hear anything else except those few words, "You wanted to see me?" That voice was so real that it seemed to be whispering in her ears. However, the more that was the case, the more Ji Yaoshua could not believe it. In fact, she did not even dare to turn back. However, her body was trembling slightly and her eyes gradually turned moist. Some of the elders of Tianhuang mainland, such as the Cloud Dragon Emperor and Little Fatty, were slightly stunned as well. Although more than 2,000 years had passed, that voice sounded familiar, as though. When Luo Ao heard that, he could not help but frown with a bewildered expression. Naturally, he had not heard that voice before. However, that sentence sounded strange. "You wanted to see me?" Instinctively, Luo Ao recalled what he had just said. His final sentence seemed to be asking where Desolate Marshal was. Could it be? A thought flashed through Luo Ao's mind. However, he denied it right on the heels of that. Impossible. Desolate Marshal ascended to the upper world more than 2,000 years ago under the watch of the living beings of the 10,000 races. How could he appear here? There were extremely cruel heaven and earth laws between the lower and upper world. There was no way anyone from the upper world could enter the billion minor kiliocosms beneath casually. That voice could not be Desolate Marshal. Those thoughts flashed through his mind in the blink of an eye. Right then, a pitch-black hole appeared in the void behind Ji Yaoshua. It expanded gradually and a figure walked out. The moment that figure stepped foot into Tianhuang mainland, silence ensued. Be it time or space, everything in the world seemed to have stopped at that moment. Everyone from Tianhuang mainland widened their eyes and looked at that figure in disbelief as though they were looking at a god. The Cloud Dragon Emperor, Little Fatty, and the others were even more agitated with their mouths agape, as though they wanted to shout. However, everyone was so emotional that they could not say a single word. The moment Luo Ao saw that person, his face turned pale and he took a half-step back instinctively. Unknowingly, beads of sweat began to roll down his forehead. The God Emperor's dark blue eyes shifted slightly and his expression gradually turned grim when he looked at the figure. The figure wore purple robes and his black hair fell casually behind his back. His face was handsome and his gaze was clear, looking nothing special. However, the God Emperor felt an incomparably terrifying aura from that person. It was as though a gigantic volcano could erupt at any moment within that person's body. He had never seen the eternal martial emperor before. However, judging from the expressions of everyone from Tianhuang mainland, he could vaguely guess the identity of the intruder. The God Emperor's heart skipped a beat before calming down rapidly. Ji Yaoshua noticed the change in everyone's expressions, but she did not dare to turn back. She was afraid that everything she sees would be an illusion that would be destroyed instantly. Suddenly, Ji Yaoshua's injured and cold palm felt a sense of warmth. The person behind her came to her side and held her hand gently. "You're injured," the person said softly. Ji Yaoshua felt a warmth in her palm. She lowered her head and saw that the wound on her palm had healed in the blink of an eye without any scars left. Ji Yaoshua looked up and finally caught sight of that familiar face and clear eyes, the person who had appeared in her dreams countless times. "Zimo!" Ji Yaoshua called softly and tears rolled down her face instantly. Actually, what Luo Ao said earlier on had indeed pierced Ji Yaoshua's heart. At that moment, she was truly devastated. She was also thinking that Luo Ao was right. She was just a pitiful person. If she died, so be it. No one would care. As though he could read Ji Yaoshua's mind, Su Zimo said softly, "I never left." Ji Yaoshua's heart skipped a beat as many images flashed through her mind. All these years, every time Dao Yarrow visited her, he would bring many mysterious treasures. In fact, there were many treasures that did not belong to this world and were unheard of. Dao Yarrow would find them and give them to her, hoping that her lifespan would increase and her cultivation would advance. Suddenly, she understood that Su Zimo was the one who searched for those treasures. She also understood that there was someone in this world who cared about her. For her, that person even stayed in Tianhuang mainland for more than 2,000 years and protected her silently without giving up on extending her lifespan. Ji Yaoshua's eyes lit up once more and she looked radiant and dazzling. Martial Emperor. The Martial Emperor is back. Greetings, Martial Emperor. The crowd of Tianhuang mainland finally broke the silence and let out a series of shouts. The living beings of the 10,000 races were excited and the blood of the martial Dao practitioners in the world burned. Their eyes were red as they knelt down one after another and bowed towards the martial Dao prime body. When all living beings in Tianhuang mainland were suffocated by the violent methods and terrifying power of the God Emperor and were only left with despair, the eternal martial Emperor returned. The fear in the hearts of everyone in Tianhuang mainland vanished instantly when they saw that figure. Everyone knew that Tianhuang mainland would not be destroyed with the martial emperor around. Martial Emperor. The God Emperor murmured softly and glared at Su Zimo fixedly. There was no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was a hint of fighting spirit. He was confident that he could kill the martial emperor even if the latter returned. In order to protect the billion minor kiliocosms, the lower world naturally had its own unique heaven and earth laws. No matter how high the martial emperor's cultivation realm was, the combat strength he could release in this minor kiliocosm could not surpass a certain limit. Otherwise, he would definitely be killed by the backlash of the heaven and earth laws. Back then, the eternal human emperor's cultivation was extraordinary. After ascending to the upper world for hundreds of thousands of years and returning to the lower world, his cultivation realm fell continuously as well. The God Emperor was confident that his combat strength had already reached the peak of the billion minor kiliocosms. Nobody in the lower world could defeat him. The God Emperor's eyes were filled with fighting spirit and provocation. However, right from the beginning, Su Zimo had not even glanced at him. It was as though in Su Zimo's eyes, he was someone dispensable and could be ignored. The God Emperor's expression was terrible. This was an immense humiliation for him. Su Zimo turned around and looked at Luo Ao, who was not far away. Under that gaze, Luo Ao felt that he could not hide all the secrets in his body. He wanted to break free from his fear of the martial emperor. He had comprehended 6 supreme divine powers and cultivated both the immortal and martial Dao. His combat strength was comparable to the human emperor and he would definitely not be so weak. However, after Su Zimo returned, he could not say a single word. It was as though an invisible aura was pressing down on his chest and it was incomparably difficult for him to breathe. The existence of the martial Dao prime body had far surpassed Luo Ao's understanding. Chapter 2060, A Single Thought. Chapter 2060, A Single Thought. You injured Yaoshua's hand? Su Zimo asked gently with a calm expression. Aye. Luo Ao's body trembled uncontrollably and he opened his mouth slightly, as though he wanted to explain something. Yes or no? Su Zimo looked at Luo Ao with a burning gaze and asked slowly. Every single word seemed to have a tremendous force pounding on Luo Ao's chest. Luo Ao wanted to remain silent, explain and lie. However, under Su Zimo's gaze, he had no way of explaining himself. Uncontrollably, he opened his mouth slightly and said, Yes. You can die then. Su Zimo said indifferently. The moment he said that, streams of scarlet light appeared from Luo Ao's body and burst forth. The God Emperor's heart skipped a beat. He was fully focused earlier on and was prepared to save Luo Ao at any moment. However, before he even saw Su Zimo show any signs of attacking, Luo Ao was already on the brink of death. What sort of methods were those? There were no dharmic arts, spirit consciousness fluctuations, divine powers, visual techniques, or sound domain secret skills. The martial emperor merely said a single sentence and such a terrifying scene appeared on Luo Ao. Ah! With a pained expression, Luo Ao let out a tragic cry and channeled his spirit consciousness wildly, releasing supreme divine powers one after another. 3 heads 6 arms. Everlasting vitality. God's kingdom. At that moment, after releasing 3 supreme divine powers, even his essence spirit could not withstand the immense burden and fine cracks appeared. However, Luo Ao could not care less. The pain on his essence spirit was far less than 1/10 of the pain in his body. Right in front of everyone, Luo Ao's body was initially filled with streaks of red light. However, after he released the 3 supreme divine powers, the red light intensified as though it was replenished. The red light had already transformed into a scarlet flame rapidly. That was a karmic flame. Karmic flames were not divine powers and were born from negative karma. However, they could burn divine powers. Back then, the martial Tao prime body comprehended the red lotus karmic fire in the Kunlun ruins and was able to smelt countless divine powers to advance his cultivation. Luo Ao was entangled by negative karma in his life. With a single thought from Su Zimo, his body would burn with endless karmic flames. Luo Ao could not react in time and the God Emperor did not notice it either. That was because Su Zimo did not conjure any dharmic arts, channel his spirit consciousness or release any secret skills, he merely activated a single thought. With a single thought, the karmic flames burned him. If Luo Ao had not activated his divine powers, he might not have attracted such ferocious karmic flames. The power of divine powers could not suppress the karmic flames at all and would only make them burn brighter. Even with the exuberant life force of everlasting vitality, it was difficult for the karmic flames to extinguish. Everlasting vitality was also a divine power. Divine powers could not defeat negative karma. Luo Ao's mouth was agape and his features were contorted with a menacing expression. The karmic flames burning on his body burned his hair, skin, flesh, bones, organs, and essence chi red and transparent. Right in front of everyone, Luo Ao's body was completely engulfed by the karmic flames. Before long, the karmic flames gradually extinguished. Luo Ao's figure had already vanished, leaving only a gigantic demonic red lotus flower on the ground. The entire process sounded long, but it only took less than 10 breaths. Luo Ao was incinerated by the karmic flames and his essence spirit could not escape. His flesh and blood eventually left only a red lotus imprint on the ground. When they saw that, the people of Tianhuang mainland finally vented their frustrations. As for the God race camp, it was silent. Initially, they had made a comeback with a torrential aura and were prepared to crush Tianhuang mainland in one fell swoop. The cavalry crushed over and massacred wantonly, but now that they saw such methods, every single god race being could not help but feel uneasy and fearful. Piak! 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 Suddenly, the God Emperor clapped gently and praised with a smile, "What amazing methods!" Many god race beings were invigorated when they heard that. Thankfully, the God Emperor was presiding over everything at the front. Su Zimo's gaze shifted as he looked at the corpses that had yet to turn cold in the Kunlun ruins. He looked at the scarlet blood river that was still warm in the god-slaying valley and the millions of living beings that were killed by the God Emperor in 3 steps between the 2 armies. In less than a day, close to 10 million living beings were buried in the Kunlun ruins forever. If he had not returned in time, even more living beings in Tianhuang mainland would have died. A look of pain and killing intent flashed through the depths of Su Zimo's eyes. He turned slightly and looked at the God Emperor for the first time. There was no threat in that gaze. It was calm as water and clear. However, for some unknown reason, the moment that gaze looked over, the God Emperor suddenly felt his hairs stand on end and his scalp prickle. He finally understood the indescribable fear and irresistible pressure that Luo Ao felt against Su Zimo. The blood debt of 10 million living beings in Tianhuang mainland will be on you. Su Zimo glanced at the God Emperor indifferently and said, "You can die too." The moment he said that, scarlet flames surged out from the God Emperor's body as well. "Ah!" The God Emperor shrieked in pain with a tragic expression. He finally felt the pain of Luo Ao's death. It was as though there were a billion ants gnawing at his flesh, bones, and organs. Instantly, the God Emperor fell into madness and scratched his body wildly. Everywhere his fingertip passed, blood scars appeared and divine blood surged. Although the golden divine blood possessed an incomparably mighty power, it could not extinguish the karmic flames and merely hindered them slightly. The God Emperor regained his clarity momentarily. He did not dare to use his divine powers and channeled his spirit consciousness into the golden crown above his head. Splash! 8 sparkling gems were embedded around the golden crown. At that moment, a milky white glow surged out from the gems. It was divine and flawless as it scattered from above his head and washed through the God Emperor's body like a waterfall. Buzz! Buzz! The karmic flames in the God Emperor's body let out a sound and gradually extinguished under the envelopment of the milky white light. The God Emperor escaped death and panted heavily. Although the karmic flames were extinguished, his flesh, organs and bones were still injured by them and were burned bright red. The God Emperor's skin had already split open and demonic red lotus flowers bloomed. Thankfully, he had this god's crown. Otherwise, he would have died for sure. Oh! Su Zimo raised his brow slightly. The martial Tao furnace smelted all dharmic divine powers, and the milky white light that surged out of the god's crown was a power he had never seen before. That power could extinguish the karmic flames. The God Emperor's divine blood surged, and with the help of the god's crown, his injuries healed in the blink of an eye. Foo. When the God Emperor saw that the god's crown could suppress the karmic flames, he burst into laughter. His confidence was regained as he shouted, "That's all there is to the eternal martial emperor." "Is that so?" Su Zimo had an indifferent expression as he held Ji Yaoshua's hand and walked slowly towards the God Emperor. "Be careful, don't bring me along," Ji Yaoshua said softly. She was worried about Su Zimo and wanted him to let her go and fight with all his might. "It's fine." Su Zimo smiled gently and shook his head, still holding Ji Yaoshua's hand. "He's quite capable if he can withstand a single punch of mine." You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.